Chapter 931. The trip to the Silvermoon Empire went without a hitch. Xing Hui received the nomological fragment from the Silvermoon Empress as he wished. However, this was to be expected. The Silvermoon Empress could not even afford to offend Emperor Qishao. She was forced into a corner by him, let alone Qing Su, who was slightly stronger than Emperor Qishao. After discussing the division of the Qishao Empire's territory with the Silvermoon Empress, Xing Hui informed Heavenly Venerable Dragon Sword and Heavenly Venerable Gu Xuanzuan. Meanwhile, he exchanged the Qilin law that he did not need for the nomological fragment he needed and returned to the Divine Wilderness Great World. This time, he did not plan to go into seclusion in the Divine Wilderness Great World. Instead, he wanted to go to the Jade Dragon soaring through the Divine Wilderness Great World's teleportation array. The person in charge here was still Immortal Emperor Zhang. After thousands of years, Immortal Emperor Zhang still hadn't fully comprehended the formation, but he had enough understanding of it. He even used the magic of the formation to hide the area within a radius of dozens of kilometers with the teleportation formation as the center. Not to mention ordinary cultivators, even if a powerful expert came and searched carefully, they wouldn't be able to find the location of the teleportation formation and use its power to attack the soaring Jade Dragon. After returning to the Jade Dragon soaring through the teleportation array, Xing Hui learned a little about the development of Earth's civilization. With the help of Void Immortal Monarchs, Earth's civilization developed rapidly at a low level. However, as the standard of cultivators increased, the help that Void Immortal Monarchs could provide became less and less. At the very least, even Void Immortal Monarchs with the power of Grand Unity Immortal Monarchs could not produce true immortals. As a result, the strongest person in Earth's civilization was still at the Void Immortal stage. However, there were more Void Immortals, nearly 100 of them. Among these 100 people, Xing Hui was familiar with one of them, Havril, who was being specially trained. In terms of talent, Havril naturally could not be compared to other geniuses who had cultivated to the virtual immortal realm. However, due to her relationship with Xing Hui, she was taken care of everywhere. Sometimes, she would even be given cultivation resources and top-notch Dharma treasures by some immortal monarchs. Under such circumstances, even if her talent was not as outstanding as others, she still entered the ranks of the strongest experts in the Earth civilization. After Xing Hui learned a little about the development of Earth's civilization, he did not stay for too long. He did not even disturb the Heavenly Lord of Plentiful Treasures. He met with the Purple Gold Immortal Emperor and found a place to cultivate in seclusion. This time, other than the precept fragments, there are still many other gains. After Xing Hui finished setting up the restriction array around the perimeter, he quickly took out the 4 treasures. These 4 treasures were the Fortune Divine artifacts Xing Hui had obtained from Grand Monarch Gu Sha, Great Monarch Qi Shao, and the 8-armed Dragon God. Currently, there were only 4 treasures that could catch the attention of the Green Ruins Dharma Eye and be of help to him in battle. Scarlet Abyss, I'll leave these to you. Xing Hui sized up the 4 Fortune Divine artifacts for a moment before he took out the Scarlet Abyss sword. Each Fortune Divine artifact represented a different direction of evolution and different structural forms. Constantly coordinating these evolutionary methods and structural forms would be of great help to the Scarlet Abyss sword's growth. The Scarlet Abyss sword excitedly wrapped around the 4 Fortune Divine artifacts and refined them one by one. Xing Hui did not supervise the Scarlet Abyss sword. Since the Scarlet Abyss sword had its own way of evolution, there was no need for him to keep an eye on it like before. At this moment, before he refined the 2 precept fragments, he needed to spend some energy to restore himself to his peak state. With the help of the illusory immortal Tao world, this process took him 600 years before he began to refine the 2 precept fragments. With the solid foundation laid by the Fortune Jade, the refinement of the 2 precept fragments didn't cause too much trouble for Xing Hui. In less than 300 years, Xing Hui had completed the refinement of the 2 precept fragments and leapt to become a supreme expert on the same level as the Grand Development Sacred Sovereign who'd refined 8 precepts of Tao. Now, there are only 4 precepts of Tao left. Xing Hui's gaze fell on the precept fragment that had also belonged to the ancient mystic sovereign, but its type was unknown. It's a pity that this law fragment doesn't belong to the 12 divine beasts. Otherwise, if I could exchange this law fragment for something, my battle strength would increase once again. At that time, I might even try to condense the origin plate. Even if I could barely condense the origin plate's shadow, it would still be a significant increase to my battle strength. Xing Hui felt a little regretful. I'll have to plan again and see if I can go after the divine beast primogenitor again. However, with my strength alone, even the weakest Qilin primogenitor would be very dangerous. I'll have to get the Grand Development Sect involved. Xing Hui was about to end his closed-door cultivation and return to the Grand Development Sect. However, when his gaze fell on the precept fragment, he vaguely sensed that something was wrong with it. It was as if the precept fragment's mysteries have decreased a little. Xing Hui stared blankly at the precept fragment for a moment and quickly realized that it wasn't an illusion. The precept fragment's mysteries had decreased a little. It was as if some special existence had refined a small portion of the precept fragment's mysteries. Sensing this anomaly, Xing Hui was in no hurry to leave seclusion. He deliberately pretended to immerse his mind in stabilizing and perfecting the illusory immortal Tao civilization, but most of his attention was focused on the precept fragment's abnormalities. The precept fragment hadn't changed much in the past 2 years, but on the 3rd year, Xing Hui suddenly sensed a flash of red light. A trace of the precept fragment's mysteries had been extracted. Clearly, someone had refined it. Following the red light, Xing Hui's gaze shifted, quickly focusing on the small world he'd created with the power of a great master. It was a special world where the dragonification fruit tree and the many resources he'd used when he was in the divine realm. Tracing back, Xing Hui's gaze finally fell on the 10-meter-tall blood-colored statue. Xing Hui's heart tightened at the sight of the blood-colored statue. According to the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures' guess, it was very likely to be the true body of an evil god. Although Xing Hui had done everything he could to keep a respectful distance from the statue after learning that it was the true body of an evil god, that didn't mean he didn't value the statue. Any changes to the statue would make Xing Hui feel like he was facing a great enemy. This evil god is actually secretly refining that precept fragment. Since he's doing it in secret, he's naturally wary of me. Xing Hui muttered to himself. He knew too little about the evil god's true body, and he didn't even know enough about chaos creatures. Before figuring out the relationship between the blood-colored statue and the precept fragment, he couldn't act rashly. With that in mind, he stopped his seclusion and left his cultivation ground, flying toward the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures' palace. Although the immortal Tao civilization wandered around the borders of the Master of Chaos, Master of Gods, and Master of Time's territories, they knew everything that happened in the 3 supreme existences' territories like the back of their hands. They were more well-informed than factions like the Great Development Sect, so they naturally knew about Xing Hui's illustrious reputation in the Master of Chaos territory over the years. Many immortal dukes had bowed respectfully to him on his way to the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures, and even some immortal emperors had deliberately stopped to greet him when they learned of his arrival. The immortal Tao civilization was being hunted down by 3 supreme existences, so if they were intercepted, it would greatly increase their chances of escaping with their lives if they had the help of such a peak existence. Therefore, it was only right to befriend him as much as possible. Ha, Sword God Xing Hui, you're here. I've heard from Immortal Emperor Zi Jin that you're in seclusion in the Jade Dragon soaring victorious sky, but I haven't been able to find the location of your seclusion. Now that you've come out of seclusion, has your cultivation ended? Xing Hui nodded. I've gained a little. That's still very impressive. Before your seclusion, you already had combat strength close to that of a supreme expert. Now that you've refined those law fragments, your combat strength should have reached an unprecedented peak. You're not inferior to those on the ultimate divine ranking. Others don't know that you have a part of the supreme treasure and think that you'll need tens of thousands of years or even tens of thousands of years to refine all of the law fragments. However, in my opinion, 1,000 years should be enough for you. The ultimate divine ranking. I do have the ability that's not inferior to those on the ultimate divine ranking, and I should be at the top. However, you should understand my situation. Even in the Master of Chaos territory, I can't be too high profile. Otherwise, I'll attract the attention of the Master of Chaos. When the Lord of Myriad Treasures heard this, he nodded in understanding. This was indeed a problem for Tsinghui. I'm here this time, because of the evil god. I found some problems, the evil god. The Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures' expression suddenly became serious. The evil god was no small matter. Especially when it was related to the evil god's true body. The Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures immediately activated all the shielding formations in the entire hall. Even some of the defensive formations were half-activated. Once there was any danger, they would all be activated. The Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures' combat strength was only equivalent to 2 or 3 great divine masters even if he relied on some top-notch immortal weapons that had been passed down. However, if the many formations in the soaring Jade Dragon Triumphant Sky were included, the lethality that he could unleash was definitely not inferior to any ultimate god. Even Tsinghui could not destroy an immortal civilization with the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures in charge before he besieged the divine beast Qilin. What's going on? The Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures asked cautiously. Tsinghui immediately told the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures what had happened and then quickly took out the law fragment and the blood-colored statue. However, when he took out the blood-colored statue, he had already used a portion of the chaotic universe's power of the virtual immortal civilization to conceal it so that the statue would not detect their conversation. Is this the law fragment? The Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures' gaze paused on the law fragment for a moment as he vaguely sensed something. A moment later, a light seemed to flash in his mind as he suddenly said, "Over the years, I've deliberately inquired about the details of the evil god who invaded the Master of Chaos universe. The evil god's true body was shattered by the Master of Chaos. Most of the main body was annihilated by the Master of Chaos, but there are still some remnants left. If I'm not mistaken, this should be a portion of the power left behind by the evil god's true body. If your statue is really the evil god we talked about earlier, he should want to absorb the power in this law fragment and reconstruct his true body as much as possible." Chapter 932. Reconstructing a True Body. As expected, this evil god is unwilling to be left out. Tsinghui looked at the statue in his hand, a solemn look in his eyes. "Tsinghui, although this evil god hasn't shown any malice at the moment, my advice to you is, it's best that we don't interfere in the affairs of the evil gods. It's best that we hand this evil god over to the Lord of Chaos. Even if it's not convenient for you to hand it over, you might as well use someone else to do it. With your current status, you should have many trustworthy subordinates working for you." The Heavenly Lord of Treasure Snatching reiterated, his words full of wariness toward the statue. "Hand it over, huh? The power of evil gods is beyond your imagination. Even the saints of the immortal Tao civilization at its peak had to rely on their indestructibility to barely contend against them, but as our world was destroyed and our laws ceased to exist, the myth of being immortal and indestructible was utterly shattered. Defeat was the only outcome we faced, especially since this evil god had once slain the 6 divine beast ancestors beneath the Lord of Chaos, and even barged into the Lord of Chaos universe and inflicted considerable damage upon him. Clearly, he was a peak champion amongst evil gods, and if we were to use the 6 tiers of chaos to categorize him, he would definitely not be at the 4th tier, but most likely at the 5th tier, second only to the 3 peerless existences, the Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Time, and the Lord of Gods. The depth and methods that such evil gods possess are too frightening. Naturally, we'd run as far as we can from an evil god at its peak, but as you can see now, Heavenly Lord, this evil god is clearly an arrow at the end of its flight. If we can dig out the benefits it has." Tsinghui paused, seeming to think of something. "Heavenly Lord, you said that this evil god had slain the 6 divine beast ancestors under the Lord of Chaos, that's right. At the time, they probably wanted to intercept the Lord of Chaos' plan of gathering the power of the 12 divine beasts to trace the phantom of the eternal plate, so that they could replace the 12 divine beasts and glimpse the ultimate meaning of eternity. If these evil gods wanted to replace the 12 divine beasts, in other words, they must have a huge amount of law fragments in their hands." Tsinghui's eyes couldn't help but light up at the thought. The heavenly lord of myriad treasures seemed to have guessed something as he frowned. Nomological fragments, you are thinking of, Xing Hui nodded heavily. If he could really obtain the remaining law fragments from these evil gods in one go, with the 12 divine beasts' laws complete, he would soon be able to create the Panga true body and have the hope of becoming a true chaos creature. Once he became a true chaos creature, he would be able to resonate with the immortal Tao civilization and receive its power. When that happened, if he were to face the Master of Chaos, the Master of Time, and the Master of Gods, he might not necessarily be powerless against them. Trading with the evil god, this, dangerous? Xing Hui knew what the Lord of Myriad Treasures wanted to say. The heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures was the only great divine ability expert of the immortal Tao civilization. The responsibility of the entire immortal Tao civilization's inheritance was all on his shoulders, which made him prioritize safety and stability whenever he faced any situation. Over time, he had already lost the spirit to take risks and struggle. However, he was able to understand this. But, he, Xing Hui, was different. Trading with the evil god might indeed be dangerous, but this evil god is clearly an arrow at the end of its flight. Even if he recovers slightly, he probably won't be able to reach his peak state. On the contrary, as long as I can obtain enough law fragments, I can immediately trace back to the origin plate and have the foundation to break through to the 4th level of the chaos realm and transform into a chaos creature. If I can become a true chaos creature before him, even if the trade is really dangerous, I will be able to deal with it calmly. It's not that easy to become a chaos creature, the heavenly lord of myriad treasures said. Xing Hui glanced at the heavenly lord of myriad treasures. The heavenly lord of myriad treasures didn't know that he had almost 80 to 90% of the creation jade and thought it was just a small piece. In fact, he, who had almost a complete creation jade, was almost equivalent to the chosen one of the immortal Tao civilization. He could be said to have gathered all of the immortal Tao civilization's fortune on him. With the immortal Tao civilization's foundation so strong that even the Master of Chaos, the Master of Time, and the Master of Gods coveted it, he didn't think that the 4th level of chaos could stop him from advancing. I want to give it a try, Xing Hui said seriously. Moreover, there's an old saying in the source world, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This evil god's true body is clearly hostile to the Master of Chaos. We fear him because we don't have the right to speak to him as an equal. If I can really grow and reach the same level as him, I might be able to borrow their power to overthrow the Master of Chaos. Whether it's these evil gods or the Master of Chaos, they are all our enemies. Their true goal is to obtain information about the ultimate eternity in our immortal Tao civilization. Even if you maintain an excellent cooperation with this evil god, they won't hesitate to turn against you when faced with the temptation of the ultimate eternity. They won't even hesitate to ally with the Master of Chaos when the time comes. I understand, but I believe that as long as I don't reveal the secrets of eternity in me, the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, and the Master of Time will be their greatest enemies. Qing Su paused slightly when he reached there. Another thought flashed through his head. Moreover, it's just like you said. Their ultimate goal is the secrets of eternity. In other words, even if they know there's something wrong with me or even that they have ill intentions, they might not harm me in order to obtain the secrets of eternity from me. Instead, they might even assist me secretly so that I can reach the peak more smoothly. You're pulling chestnuts out of the fire, that's the worst outcome. At least for now, my path forward is still clear. The Lord of Myriad Treasures fell silent. After a while, he slowly said, there's something I haven't mentioned to you. I might not be the only great master in our immortal Tao civilization, you're not the only one. Xing Hui was a little surprised. There's another great master. Yes, that great master should be the Qingping Sword Spirit, the Lord of Myriad Treasures said slowly. I've heard of a rumor that when our civilization was on the brink of collapse, the great ancestor of all living beings, Saint Hua, borrowed the core power of our civilization and ignited her own supreme saint power to throw the Qingping sword, born from chaos and forged from near-eternal materials, into the river of time. She attempted to return the sword's spirit to the primordial era and prevent our civilization from facing this unprecedented calamity. Saint Hua continued slowly. That's right, Saint Hua. The river of time. That's right, the river of time. Only our immortal Tao civilization can clearly manifest and see the river of time, because this river of time is the path that the great primordial plate once walked, and the traces left behind on the path belong to eternity. There was a hint of pride in the Lord of Myriad Treasures' expression when he said this, but there was even more sadness. He was proud that their immortal Tao civilization possessed a great legacy. He was sad that his descendants didn't fight for it, and couldn't even protect the great primordial plate's legacy. Xing Hui was silent for a moment before he spoke again. If I'm not mistaken, the future clearly hasn't changed. The Lord of Myriad Treasures nodded. The future hasn't changed. At the same time, as the immortal Tao civilization crumbled, the river of time vanished as well. However, it's not without a trace, because the Qingping sword spirit is currently submerged in the river of time. Moreover, we can intermittently receive some information from the Qingping sword spirit, but most of it is incomplete and can't be analyzed. Perhaps the method of transmission is beyond our understanding. However, a few thousand years ago, not long after you first came to our jade dragon soaring through the heavens, we suddenly received a relatively clear image, an image related to you. The Lord of Myriad Treasures nodded. An image related to me? Xing Hui blinked. The Lord of Myriad Treasures nodded and waved his hand, gathering countless streaks of laws in his hand. These streams of laws appeared to be the most ordinary streams of laws. Moreover, each of these streams of laws was extremely weak, so weak that even a domain-level cultivator would not be able to use them to comprehend and cultivate. However, it was precisely because of this weakness that they could exist in any environment. It was just like spatial geometry, calculus, linear algebra, and other relatively advanced knowledge. Many people might not be able to understand them, but if it was simple numbers from 1 to 9, even a child who had just learned to speak would be able to understand. The information contained in these streaks of laws has been transmitted for 100,000 years. We've always treated them as meaningless power of laws. It wasn't until 10,000 years ago that we barely grasped an analysis method that we guessed that this was a type of information that a certain existence wanted to transmit to us. It was a type of information that we couldn't understand, and according to our further conjecture, we identified it as the Qingping sword spirit. In the past, the information was disorderly, until this image appeared. As the Lord of Myriad Treasures spoke, the image formed completely from the streaks of laws finally took shape. It was a unique perspective. It was like a person looking at the scene outside the window of a speeding train. The image was blurry and distorted, but one could still vaguely tell that it was a great being. He was surrounded by faint streaks of light that contained countless information. Outside the streaks of light, dozens of great figures seemed to be pouncing on the figure surrounded by the streaks of light at the fastest speed possible. It was like a group of heroes vying for supremacy. Even though the images were rather blurry, Qing Su managed to determine the identities of the several dozen great existences as soon as he saw them. Evil God. Especially the three at the center of the dozens of great beings, they were the Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Time, and the Lord of Gods. There was no need to describe them in detail. Xing Hui knew that they were the three supreme existences. As for the figure surrounded by the streaks of light, it was himself. Chapter 933. What is this? Xing Hui understood a little, but there were still more things he didn't understand. Not long ago, I wasn't sure. The only thing we could determine was the identities of you and those evil gods. But just now, the heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures' gaze fell on Xing Hui. Just now. Xing Hui's heart skipped a beat. That plan I had just now. Yes. The heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures nodded. You said, just as you said, their ultimate goal is the mystery of eternity. In other words, even if they know that you have a problem or even have ulterior motives, in order to pry the mystery of eternity from you, they might not only not harm you, but also secretly help you, allowing you to step onto the peak more smoothly. Xing Hui's heart sank. Could it be? Had he really been exposed? He had already entered the sights of the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, and even the Master of Time. It was just that those great and supreme existences were just quietly waiting for the development of the situation, waiting for the final moment to harvest. That scene is me finally manifesting the mystery of eternity, and it's time for them to harvest. The layer of faint flowing light around my body that contains countless information is the trace of eternity. That information is the information of eternity. Can you feel the aura of eternity inside? The heavenly lord of myriad treasures looked at the faint flowing light around Xing Hui in the scene with a gloomy expression. Xing Hui was silent. Yes. He could feel the aura of eternity inside. At the same time, his gaze fell on himself. At that time, in terms of size, he was already not inferior to an ordinary evil god, but compared to the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, and the Master of Time, he was still a long way off. In other words, the aura of eternity definitely didn't mean that he had broken through to the legendary realm of eternity. Moreover, if he could really break through to the realm of eternity, which represented the ultimate of everything, then the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, and the Master of Time, these terrifying existences wouldn't be rushing forward to divide and devour him. They should feel fear. The fear of running as far away as possible. After a long while, Xing Hui said flatly, "This is good news, isn't it? At the very least, it's not hard to tell from this image that I'll eventually become a chaos life form and ascend to the 4th level of chaos. In other words, it doesn't matter even if I work with this evil god now. At the very least, I'll ascend to the 4th level of chaos and become a true chaos life form. Even though I don't want to believe it, but, the Master of Chaos, or the Master of Gods, or the Master of Time, I don't know if one of them, or all three of them, has taken notice of you. That's why I have to break through to the primal chaos realm as soon as possible." Qing Su accepted the heavenly lord of myriad treasures' words and looked at the fragment of laws in his hand. "I plan on making a deal with this evil god. I'll use this fragment of laws to exchange for the fragments of laws of other divine beasts in his possession." The Lord of Myriad Treasures opened his mouth, wanting to persuade Xing Hui, but he didn't know where to start. In the end, he could only let out a long sigh. "Then, I can only wish you good luck. My luck has always been good." Xing Hui smiled. "If there's anything you need help with, just let me know." "I understand." Xing Hui nodded. "I don't want my trade with the evil god to bring any trouble to Jade Dragon's soaring victories, so I'll be taking my leave first." The Lord of Myriad Treasures didn't urge Xing Hui to stay. He had to be responsible for the immortal Dao civilization. There was quite a high chance that green ruins had already caught the attention of a certain peak existence. Under these circumstances, if he stayed in the Jade Dragon's soaring victorious sky of the immortal Dao civilization for too long, even the Jade Dragon's soaring victorious sky would be exposed. Perhaps, he'd already been exposed. But due to some special reasons, that great existence hadn't attacked the immortal Dao civilization. Less than half a month after Xing Hui's departure, a void immortal lord suddenly appeared in the Lord of Myriad Treasures' palace and requested to see Xing Hui. Since the matter concerned Xing Hui, the Lord of Myriad Treasures summoned the void immortal lord and asked, "Is there something you need from Xing Hui? However, he's already left our Jade Dragon soaring victories." "Lord Xing Hui has left?" The void immortal lord's expression carried a trace of regret. "He's still a bit late in the end." "Is there something important?" "If it's serious, I can think of a way to contact Xing Hui." "This isn't anything important, but, several thousand years ago, Lord Xing Hui wanted to find an old friend he met when he was young in the origin world. Although he didn't find anyone back then and seemed to have given up, I took note of this matter and carefully investigated it. 2 years ago, I finally found someone whose characteristics matched the person Lord Xing Hui was looking for. Now, all that's left is for Lord Xing Hui to personally verify it," the void immortal lord answered carefully. The Lord of Myriad Treasures understood the importance of that person and hesitated for a moment before saying, "This matter isn't urgent. We've been here for several thousand years, so there's no need to be in a hurry. Xing Hui has more important things to do right now, so let's not disturb him." Understood. When the heavenly lord of myriad treasures spoke, the void transformation immortal monarch respectfully agreed. Whoosh! Tsing Hui's figure rapidly traveled, not knowing where he was going. He thought about how he might be targeted by a supreme existence who was secretly adding fuel to the fire. The world was vast, but he couldn't find a safe place to go. The immortal Tao civilization had been destroyed long ago. Currently, it overlapped with the worlds of the Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Gods, and the Lord of Time. However, because the three supreme existences still wanted to pry into the secrets of eternity from the immortal Tao civilization, they hadn't completely destroyed it. In fact, they'd only overlapped 10 to 20% of their own worlds. It wasn't that they wanted to overlap more, but if they did, the laws of two different universes would collide even more violently. At that time, the broken immortal Tao civilization would be unable to withstand the corrosion of the laws of the worlds of the Lord of Time, Lord of Gods, and Lord of Chaos. There was an 80 to 90% chance that it would be completely destroyed. If that happened, it would be wishful thinking for them to search for the secrets of eternity contained in the immortal Tao civilization. However, although there were still remnants of the immortal Tao civilization's power in this territory, if a supreme being really wanted to sweep his gaze over, he could easily see through the countless remnant laws of the immortal Tao civilization's world and lock onto his figure. If he wanted to completely shake off the supreme existence that might exist, only head to the chaos void. No. Even the chaos void wouldn't work. Unless he headed to the very depths of the chaos void. But to him, if he wanted to delve into the depths of the chaos void where even the three supreme existences couldn't pry into, even if he flew for millions or tens of millions of years, he probably wouldn't be able to do it. After a moment of thought, Tsing Hui's gaze couldn't help but fall on the crimson statue. Compared to before, even though the blood-red statue still gave him a gloomy, evil, and powerful feeling, the feeling of horror he felt had faded a great deal. From this, it was clear that even if the crimson statue was hiding some sort of scheme, he should have the ability to fight back. As the thought flashed through his mind, he had already taken out the blood-colored statue. His powerful divine consciousness was directly injected into the blood-colored statue, shaking the structure within. Please show yourself, honored one. Whoosh! As soon as Tsing Hui finished speaking, red mist began to diffuse from the statue. Before long, it formed the evil god's face made entirely of crimson mist. Little fellow, it looks like you've grown quite well. However, you don't seem to have fulfilled your promise. I haven't received any sacrifices during this time. Although you haven't received any sacrifices, I believe that the few mouthfuls of power you've absorbed from this law fragment would be much more efficient than a million vermilion realm sacrifices, wouldn't you say? Tsing Hui glanced at the law fragment in his hand as he spoke. The eyes of the face formed by the blood-colored mist also fell on the nomological fragment. After a moment of silence, the face formed by blood-colored mist said, "Then, tell me, what do you need in order to give me this law fragment?" "Barter, of course. You can trade the divine beast law fragment you have for my law fragment, but as a true chaos life form, your law fragment should be much more valuable than the divine beasts. That's why I would be at a great disadvantage if we were to trade 1 for 1. I believe that a ratio of 1 to 10 is more appropriate." "Ha, little fellow, I'm afraid you don't understand. Perhaps law fragments are precious to divine beasts, but they're nothing to chaos lifeforms like us. The chaos energy I breathe in every year is enough to condense dozens of law fragments like the one you have. Therefore, this law fragment isn't as valuable as you think." "Is that so? If you were at your peak, you might be able to condense many law fragments from the chaos energy you breathe in every year. But now, you don't even seem to be able to manifest normally. Even if you unleash all your power. I estimate that you'll only be at the level of one of the incarnations of the Master of Chaos, Master of Gods, or Master of Time. Moreover, it would only be an ordinary incarnation and extremely weak. How much time would it take for you to recover without being detected by the Master of Chaos, Master of Time, or Master of Gods?" Tsing Hui said calmly, "It's like a mortal who's been thirsty for 3 days in the desert. Is a bottle of water in their heart the same value as a bottle of water in the heart of a person living by a river? The face made of crimson mist fell silent again. After a long while, it slowly said, "Little fellow, you're right. I should offer different prices for the same resource at different times. I'm willing to trade for 10 law fragments with you." Chapter 934. The evil god agreed to Tsing Hui's request without hesitation. This made Tsing Hui realize that his price was too low. The importance of this law fragment to the evil god was far beyond his imagination. However, he could also tell from the side that the evil god before him was much weaker than he had imagined. It was to the point that he had even agreed to Ching Su's rude offer, all for the sake of refining this fragment of laws as soon as possible so that he could obtain even greater strength. Very good. Tsing Hui guessed that the evil god was strong on the outside but weak on the inside, but he didn't show it. He just nodded slightly. Then, let's start the deal. Where is your law fragment? In my current state, I naturally won't carry these law fragments with me. I've hidden them in an extremely secretive place, so I need you to cooperate with me to go to that hidden world and retrieve them. Sure, how do I go there? I know how to go there, but to open that world's barrier, I need a portion of my power. However, my current level of power isn't enough to open that world's gate. So, either you let me refine 1/10 of this law fragment first, or, find me 1,000,000 vermilion realm cultivators for a blood sacrifice. When Tsing Hui heard this, he immediately understood that there was a big problem with this world. I need to know the location of that world, as well as the method you used to open that world, to confirm the truth of your words. I don't want to waste 1/10 of the law power and end up with nothing. The evil god's face formed by blood-red mist was silent for a moment before replying, although your request is somewhat rude, from your standpoint, I can understand your caution. This is the location of that world and the method to open the world's barrier. As he spoke, a piece of information was projected. Tsing Hui sensed that the information didn't contain any danger, so he digested it one by one. When Tsing Hui's gaze fell on the method to open the world's barrier, he vaguely felt that it was familiar, but he didn't show it on his face. An affiliated world? Tsing Hui nodded with a natural expression. I'll go to that world now. I'll let you know when I'm there. All right. The face formed by the bloody mist quickly retreated back into the statue. Tsing Hui also put the statue back into the world of the Almighty. However, Tsing Hui couldn't help but be cautious when he considered that the power of the law fragments would still be absorbed by the blood-red statue in the small world of the great god realm. In other words, it wasn't safe to keep the statue in the small world. The evil god is in existence on the same level as the Master of Primal Chaos, the Master of Gods, and the Master of Time. Even though there are differences in strength between them, this difference is not obvious. It's like the difference between the true energy stage and the never-ending stage of the Saint Realm. If we want to completely seal this statue and prevent it from acting rashly, Tsing Hui's expression froze. Not long ago, I had the Scarlet Abyss Sword refine a divine creation artifact. That divine creation artifact could even seal the incarnations of the Master of Chaos, the Master of Time, and the Master of Gods. When he thought of this, Tsing Hui directly took out the Scarlet Abyss Sword and permeated it with his divine consciousness. Even though nearly 1,000 years had passed, the Scarlet Abyss Sword had yet to refine all 4 divine creation artifacts. It had only refined less than half of the second divine creation artifact. This efficiency was much faster than refining the first divine creation artifact. After all, when the Scarlet Abyss Sword had first refined the divine creation artifact, Tsing Hui had spared no effort in pouring in his power of law to assist the Scarlet Abyss Sword's spirit. Even so, it had still taken 1,000 years. This time, the Scarlet Abyss Sword's spirit was the only one refining the divine creation artifact. Not only had it finished refining the first divine creation artifact in less than 1,000 years, it was also nearly halfway through refining the second divine creation artifact. Scarlet Abyss, I need to borrow this divine creation artifact. You can refine the remaining half divine creation artifact. Yes, Father. The internal structure of every divine creation artifact is different. Right now, I'm not inferior to a divine creation artifact. Logically speaking, the speed of refining the second divine creation artifact should be greatly reduced. However, due to the difference and difficulty of refining the second divine creation artifact, it took me 400 years to refine the second divine creation artifact. Right now, the third divine creation artifact will probably take 1,300 to 1,400 years. The fourth divine creation artifact might take more than 3,000 years. The more divine creation artifacts you refine, the longer it will take. Xing Hui nodded understandingly. It seemed like the cultivation method developed by Zhiyun could not allow the Scarlet Abyss sword to grow indefinitely. However, after refining the second divine creation artifact, the Scarlet Abyss sword's spirit was much stronger than before. If he had the Scarlet Abyss sword in his hand when he had two great Tao laws, his battle power would not be close to that of an ultimate expert. Instead, he would have truly reached the threshold of an ultimate expert. If the Scarlet Abyss sword had refined the third divine creation artifact at that time, Xing Hui's battle power would not be inferior to any of the Bamboo Shadow Sword Master, Emperor Bai, and the rest. Take it slow. I believe that one day, you will be able to completely understand the mysteries of the divine creation artifact and transform yourself into a higher-level divine artifact. Xing Hui encouraged. After feeling the joy of the Scarlet Abyss sword's spirit, his mood improved greatly. Immediately after, he took out the divine creation artifact that was said to be able to seal the incarnation of the Master of Gods and studied it carefully. This divine creation artifact was in the shape of a bracelet. The entire bracelet looked sparkling and translucent like jade, just like a white jade bracelet. However, from time to time, a faint purple light would flash on the bracelet. If a cultivator focused his mind and looked at the purple light, he would immediately notice that the purple light was like an extremely huge galaxy, emitting the charm of the vast starry sky and endless stars. Void Heaven Ring. Xing Hui already understood the name of this divine creation artifact when he sensed it. This creation artifact was, in fact, a part of the chaotic universe that the Lord of Chaos did not need. After spending some time and effort, he condensed it to a high degree and formed a universe with an extremely high compression rate. Because the materials were equivalent to a part of the Master of Chaos, and because it was refined by the Master of Chaos, its quality was naturally astonishing. Even though it could not seal the Master of Gods and Time's incarnations, it could easily seal their incarnations for a period of time. Although the statue of the evil god in his hand was the evil god's incarnation, its grade was not as high as the Master of Gods and Time's incarnation. Its remaining strength was probably weaker than the Master of Gods and Time's incarnation, so it would not be difficult to seal it with the Void Heaven Ring. Of course, if the evil god wanted to break the Void Heaven Ring's seal, it would naturally have to use its full strength. This way, it would be easier for Xing Hui to see through its true strength. After spending a year to understand the Void Heaven Ring's function, Xing Hui immediately activated the divine creation artifact and threw the evil god's incarnation into the Void Heaven Ring. After throwing the blood-colored statue of the evil god's incarnation into the Void Heaven Ring, Xing Hui divided a portion of his consciousness to carefully observe the evil god's incarnation's reaction. As expected, the evil god's incarnation immediately manifested as soon as it was thrown into the Void Heaven Ring. Like numerous tentacles, the evil god's incarnation attempted to penetrate the Void Heaven Ring's periphery. It was obvious that the evil god had sensed the difference in the environment. However, the blood-colored tentacles did not last for long before the evil god's incarnation seemed to have thought of something. The tentacles rapidly retracted, and very soon, the Void Heaven Ring returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. Very good, the Void Heaven Ring is indeed effective. The evil god's strength is much weaker than I imagined. However, based on the Master of Gods and Time's incarnation, it can be inferred that he is stronger than the Grand Expansion Holy Sovereign, but not at the level of the Master of Gods and Time's incarnation. Based on this series of changes, Xing Hui had a direct understanding of the evil god's true body's current strength. The evil god's true body was only at the level of 3 or even 2 vein stones. However, according to what Xing Hui knew, the clones of the Master of Gods, the Master of Time, and the others were only at the level of a four-vein world protector. However, their control and understanding of power far surpassed that of any great master. With the boost from their secret techniques, four-vein world protectors could easily unleash the battle prowess of a 10-vein, 11-vein, or 12-vein world protector. To the Master of Gods and the Master of Time, size was not everything. Only the Lord of Primal Chaos would be able to send down an incarnation that was at least at the 7-patterned level. Sometimes, if the Lord of Primal Chaos couldn't control his incarnation well, it wouldn't be strange for him to send down an 8-patterned or 9-patterned incarnation. Even if the Lord of Primal Chaos had a simple secret technique or a weak combat technique, the Lord of Primal Chaos would still be able to crush his opponent through sheer power. 3-vein level of energy. It's roughly equivalent to a 10-vein level of battle prowess. I wonder if he has a creation divine artifact. After all, an avatar with a creation divine artifact and an avatar without one are two entirely different concepts, Xing Hui muttered to himself. Although he had only refined 6 types of Grand Dao laws before killing Great Sovereign Bone Temple and Great Emperor Qi Shao, his battle prowess was roughly at the level of a 9-vein world protector. Now that he had refined 2 more types of Grand Dao laws, his battle prowess was nearing the level of an 11-vein world protector. If the evil god did not have a creation divine artifact, it would not be difficult for him to suppress the evil god, but if he did, he could only avoid the brunt of the attack. Damn it, a camel is still bigger than a horse, Xing Hui sighed emotionally as he soundlessly returned to the Divine Wilderness Great World. The Divine Wilderness Great World was now thriving. As the Dragon Sword Heavenly Sovereign and Gu Xuanzuan conquered the forces under the command of Great Emperor Qi Shao and the 8-armed Dragon God, countless resources poured into the Divine Wilderness Great World. The entire Divine Wilderness Great World once again welcomed an explosive development. Cultivators of the Divine True Body Realm, the Traversal Realm, and the Boundary Realm with a Thought Realm emerged one after another like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. In less than 1,000 years, the number of Supremes had soared to double digits. Even if the Green Ruins and the Void Sword Pavilion were not taken into account, the Divine Wilderness Great World could be said to be famous among the dozens of great worlds in the surroundings. Moreover, as the Divine Wilderness Great World continued to develop, the number of experts continued to increase. The higher-ups of the Hunyuan Sword Sect also left the Divine Wilderness Great World and entered the territories of the 8-armed Dragon God and Great Emperor Qi Shao. They combined the territories of the two forces with the Divine Wilderness Great World and established the Hunyuan Empire with the Hunyuan Sword Sect as the foundation. Supreme Elder Xing Hui was conferred the title of Hunyuan Sword Emperor. Qing Su was unaware of these developments. When he arrived at the Divine Wilderness Great World, he did not alert the people of the Origin Sword Sect. Instead, he immediately found Immortal Emperor Canghai, who was overseeing the transmission array on the Fortune mainland, and handed over the method to open the Great World that the Fiend God's true body had given him. Immortal Emperor, I feel that this method is a little familiar. I would like you to analyze it. Chapter 935. This technique. Immortal Emperor Canghai had been studying the transmission array left behind in the Divine Wilderness Great World. The grade of this transmission array was extremely high. Many top experts of the Immortal Dao civilization speculated that it was most likely left behind by a primal chaos saint. Comprehending this array was equivalent to observing and learning the array experience left behind by a primal chaos saint. The Immortal Dao civilization was proficient in arrays, refining tools, and alchemy. Immortal Emperor Canghai was also a leader in arrays. Now that he had comprehended this transmission array for thousands of years, he could definitely be called the Immortal Dao civilization's #1 array master. In terms of understanding of transmission arrays, he was far beyond ordinary array masters. With such a deep accumulation of experience, Immortal Emperor Canghai immediately understood something when Xing Hui handed over the method to open the world's barrier given to him by the evil god. Wait a moment. Immortal Emperor Canghai said to Xing Hui, and quickly went to his palace. He pulled out a set of materials used to arrange the array, and just like that, in front of Tsing Hui, he started to study the array and immersed himself in it. In this regard, Tsing Hui could only wait patiently. Fortunately, Immortal Emperor Tsang Hai's study of the world's barrier method did not last long. After 3 months, he had roughly understood the principle of this array. I don't know where the world you speak of is, but although this method has the effect of opening the world's barrier, it does not enter the world's barrier. Instead, it uses the power of the world's barrier as a power source to activate an array hidden in this method. As for the function of this array. Fortunately, the function of this array is 30% similar to the array I'm currently studying. Therefore, I'm 90% sure that this is an ultra-long distance transmission array. Ultra-long distance transmission array. Tsing Hui immediately thought of the distance between the transmission array on the Fortune mainland and the Jade Dragon soaring through the heavens. One had to know that the Fortune mainland was located in the Divine Wilderness Great World, and the Divine Wilderness Great World was located at the border of the Master of Primal Chaos territory. The Jade Dragon soaring through the heavens was almost half of the Master of Primal Chaos territory, and the distance was countless light years. The evil god had given him such a transmission array. Could it be, the law fragments of those divine beasts were not in the territory of the Master of Chaos, but in the territory of the Master of Gods or the Master of Time? Immortal Emperor Tsang Hai, can you restore this incantation and activate it with our power? This incantation is obviously closely related to the backup plan in that world. If you can take me to that world, I can give it a try. Alright, there's no time to lose. I'll take you there now. Tsing Hui said without hesitation. Immortal Emperor Tsang Hai nodded. Immediately, the two of them soared into the sky and quickly left the Divine Wilderness Great World. Then, they traveled through the void at full speed. The world that the evil gods spoke of was only a subsidiary world, and the so-called subsidiary world was actually a world that was attached to the original immortal Tao civilization. It was located between the chaotic void and the broken immortal Tao civilization world. Not to mention that the environment of this world was completely closed off, there were no overly precious resources inside, and very few people went to pay attention to it. The two of them spent 20 years to come to that world. When they deliberately used their divine sense to scan it, they found that the strongest experts in the world were only equivalent to the third layer of the immortal 6 realms, which was the spirit refining realm. The whole world had more than 10 continents, and each continent was divided into dozens or hundreds of countries. The population of all the continents added up to 10 billion. This world has traces of being modified by someone. In addition, Lord Tsing Hui, if you carefully sense it, you should be able to sense that there are some special things hidden in this world. These things are blocked by an invisible force. If you want to take these special things out, you need to use a special secret method, and the so-called special secret method is obviously a magical method. Immortal Emperor Tsang Hai studied this world and quickly figured out the abnormality of this world. Even without Immortal Emperor Tsang Hai's guidance, Tsing Hui also noticed the uniqueness of this world. He could feel that a part of this world was covered by an invisible force. If he used violence to tear apart the covering force, it was very likely that that part of the world would fall into the chaotic void and be eroded by the chaotic void. According to what the evil god's true body told him, these covered things should be law fragments. Next, he only needed to follow the evil god's instructions and give him enough power to open this world. Then, he would be able to take out the law fragments hidden in this world and complete the transaction with him. However, he had already learned from Immortal Emperor Tsang Hai that the method to open this world contains special changes. Once this method was used to open this world, it would inevitably form an ultra-long-distance transmission formation that would send him to an unknown location. This was something that Tsing Hui could not be careless about. Immortal Emperor Tsang Hai, can you activate this method? Although this method has certain requirements for the characteristics of the power, the main part is still the shielded space. If you don't need to open the shielded space, I can activate it. You don't need to open the shielded space. Can't you take out the thing in the shielded space while activating the method? I can't. Immortal Emperor Tsang Hai shook his head. The power he used to shield the space is not the power of laws or formations. It's... Immortal Emperor Songhai paused for a moment to organize his words. It's a little like a creation divine artifact of the nature of a small world. Xinghui vaguely understood that this was a small world that the evil god's true body had left behind to refine from a part of his chaotic universe. If I want to take out what I want from this space that's similar to a divine tool of creation, is there a way? I can only rely on his method, but this will inevitably activate the ultra-long-distance transmission formation. Xinghui frowned. That evil god, his methods were very comprehensive. Immortal Emperor Songhai looked at the world for a long time before saying, if we want to stop that ultra-long-distance transmission array, we should be able to start from the energy source. The energy source of that ultra-long-distance transmission array is this world. It will absorb the energy of the entire world and convert it into the kinetic energy of the transmission array, thus activating the ultra-long-distance transmission array. If we can destroy this world, we will naturally be able to stop the activation of the transmission array. The only problem is, even if we take advantage of the moment when the world shatters and use a spell to intercept that spatial creation artifact and prevent it from falling into the chaotic void, we may not be able to open it. After all, that spatial creation artifact is one with this world itself. When the world is destroyed and loses its energy source, this spatial creation artifact will be locked from the inside. If it's locked, then so be it. When the time comes, we'll slowly chisel it open. Xinghui sneered. Chisel it open? Immortal Emperor Songhai blinked. Even a creation divine artifact can be chiseled open. Though he was a member of an immortal Tao civilization, he was well versed in the cultivation system of the Lord of Chaos. According to the information he'd gathered, no creation divine artifact had ever been destroyed unless it encountered the incarnations of great existences such as the Son of Chaos, the Master of Gods, or the Lord of Time. At best, the destruction of a creation divine artifact would exhaust its power so that it couldn't perform its intended function. It's true that we can't destroy a creation divine artifact with our strength, but... After a pause, Xinghui said, all right, leave the matter of chiseling open the creation divine artifact to me. You should study the method to activate it now. All right. Immortal Emperor Songhai nodded and swiftly arrived at the world's surface. However, when he swept his gaze over the world, he said, there are 10 billion living beings in this world. If we don't relocate them, they'll all perish with the destruction of the world. I'll take them into my immortal kingdom. Xinghui nodded. If he could avoid harming the innocent, he naturally didn't want to do so. Immortal Emperor Songhai had spent a full 30 years studying the method to activate this world. Only after 30 years had passed did he finally hand over a brand new method to Xinghui. It should be done. All right. Xinghui replied expectantly. In a moment, I'll activate this method and pull out the spatial creation divine artifact hidden in this world. Then, you can destroy this world. Immortal Emperor Songhai nodded and focused. Xinghui began to circulate the method. Streams of light spread out from his hands and enveloped the entire world. At the same time, a minor world with a diameter of more than 100 kilometers appeared and began to operate and activate according to a special method. Once the minor world was activated, Immortal Emperor Songhai immediately destroyed the auxiliary world before him. While this auxiliary world was not small, spanning more than 10 billion square kilometers, it was nothing to an origin immortal emperor who was equivalent to a god. Under his power, the entire world was quickly obliterated. The streams of light that had enveloped the world dissipated with the destruction of the world, and the minor world that was less than 100 kilometers in diameter also calmed down. It's done. A sliver of joy appeared on Qing Su's face when he saw that. He had already kept the miniature world. Next, he would let the Scarlet Abyss sword devour and refine the miniature world that was like a creation artifact bit by bit. As long as he could create an opening and enter the miniature world, all the fragments of laws hidden in the miniature world that had been refined from a fragment of the chaotic universe would belong to Qing Su. By then, he would be able to complete the third layer of the Disk of Ways in a single stroke with these fragments of laws. With the illusory world of immortals as his foundation, he would be able to trace back to the disk of origins and become a true life form of chaos. However, the joy on Qing Su's face only lasted for a while. The miniature world that had already dimmed suddenly erupted with dazzling light, and it began to absorb the power of laws within him like a whale sucking in water. It was so fast that even though he had already refined 8 laws, he still felt like he was about to be sucked dry instantly. Not good. This minor world is the key to activating that ultra-long-distance teleportation formation. Qing Su's expression changed drastically, but by now, he had already discovered that he could not stop the technique at all. Bzzz. Basically, when 80% of the power of laws in Qing Su's body had been absorbed, the dazzling light that erupted from the miniature world had already turned into an unprecedented ripple of space, sweeping up Qing Su and immortal Emperor Canghai. In the next moment, they tore through the chaotic space and flew towards the very depths of it. Chapter 936. Buzz. Buzz. When the stream of light enveloped the two of them and shot into the depths of the void, the entire territory of the Lord of Chaos seemed to tremble. One could vaguely see a gigantic hand that was tens of millions of light-years in the endless void intercepting the stream of light from afar. It seemed to want to grasp the stream of light in its hand and crush it into pieces. However, the stream of light appeared too abruptly, and its speed was too fast, while the gigantic hand that spanned tens of millions of light-years was too slow. In the end, it could only watch as the stream of light broke through the layers of blockade and entered the depths of the chaotic void. In the depths of the chaotic void, terrifying life forms that were hundreds of millions of light-years in size were constantly cruising around, exuding extremely terrifying pressure. Even a trace of this pressure was enough to make a great magic-level existence shudder. If it were an ordinary supreme being, just this power alone would be enough to erase his spiritual imprint and life imprint. Just like how humans would be blinded and deprived of their vision when they saw a strong light, those life forms that weren't strong enough would also have their life imprints and spiritual imprints erased when they came into contact with the life waves of these life forms that were at the pinnacle of existence. In other words, they would be turned into ashes on the spot. However, these terrifying life forms that were hundreds of millions of light-years in size were nothing compared to the chaotic void that was filled with chaotic energy. They were like celestial bodies that were suspended in the starry sky of the universe. Compared to mortals, they were unimaginably huge and shocking, but compared to the vast starry sky, they were not worth mentioning. Even if these terrifying and great life forms wanted to intercept the stream of light that flew past, they would have to give up temporarily due to the distance. The stream of light flew in the endless chaotic void for an unknown period of time. Finally, a slowly revolving but seemingly lifeless huge world appeared in front of the stream of light. Then, without any pause, the stream of light quickly shot into the stream of light and merged with the huge world. Eternal Shrine. Star Abyss Universe Supreme Palace. As a stream of light shot in, this palace, which had been immersed for 100,000 years and was equivalent to the supreme temple in the hearts of the cultivators in the entire Star Abyss universe, suddenly burst out with a dazzling stream of light. For a time, countless top experts and giants of various generations who were guarding this temple came from all directions of the universe, like believers on a pilgrimage. Their expressions were full of piety. Among all the pilgrims, the leader was an old man who guarded the divine hall. The old man was filled with the presence of many profound laws, and the energy pulses he gave off from time to time were unfathomable. However, at this moment, Zabulu, who could be considered a supreme existence in the eyes of any powerful being, was prostrating himself in front of the main hall of this divine temple. With an excited expression, he shouted, "High Priest Zabulu welcomes the arrival of my lord." Following the shout of the high priest named Zabulu, top experts with unfathomable auras appeared one after another. They arrived outside the eternal shrine and shouted loudly, prostrating themselves in worship. Pope Tebran of the Church of Dawn welcomes the arrival of our Lord. First Tower Master of the Dark Tower, Resplendent Star welcomes the arrival of our Lord. City Lord Long Chi of the City of 1,000 Worlds welcomes the arrival of our Lord. Voices echoed in the void. Without exception, every will was filled with respect, worship, and even fanaticism. These voices echoed outside the temple, but it made Xing Hui and immortal Emperor Hai, who had just been teleported here by the ultra-long-distance teleportation array, look quite unsightly. So many experts. The experts outside are all at the Lord of Heaven realm. The aura of some of them is comparable to the supreme experts in the territory of the Lord of Chaos. Immortal Emperor Hai said solemnly, "I can no longer feel the fluctuation of laws of our immortal Tao civilization. Coupled with the scene of the outside world we saw when we were teleported just now. We are now far away from the immortal Tao civilization, far away from the Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Time, and the Master of Gods. We have come to an unfamiliar universe, unfamiliar." Xing Hui's gaze fell on the void heaven ring in his hand. No. It's not unfamiliar. At least, it's not unfamiliar to him. If I'm not mistaken, we are now in his chaotic universe. Him. Immortal Emperor Hai thought of the brief introduction Xing Hui had given him and paled. Evil God. We've entered a chaotic universe formed by an evil god. Qing Su opened his mouth and was about to say something, but at this moment, the evil god that he had sealed in the void heaven ring seemed to sense something. A blood-red mist permeated the surroundings wildly and began to smash against the seal of the void heaven ring. However, when it truly attacked the void heaven ring's seal, Xing Hui discovered that the evil god's power was weaker than he'd imagined. Not only was it weak, it was much, much weaker. It was so weak that even a great master's cultivation was far below it. At best, it was equivalent to a ruler. However, due to the terrifying deterrence of the evil god's identity, Xing Hui didn't dare to attack even though he clearly had the power to destroy the crimson statue and even kill the evil god at the end of its flight. In the end, furthermore, he had been schemed against by this evil god and fell into his trap. He had been used as the energy source to activate the ultra-long-distance teleportation array formation and had directly come to this world. He arrived in the evil god's world. Fortunately, the only thing worth rejoicing over was that the true body of the evil god was sealed within the void heaven ring. The void heaven ring was a space-type creation artifact that the master of primal chaos had used a part of his body to create. Its sealing power was astonishing. For the time being, the weakened true body of the evil god would not be able to leave the void heaven ring and merge with the world he had created. Otherwise, if the evil god really did merge with the void heaven ring, it would be equivalent to a weak incarnation of a world creation realm expert returning to his minor world. It would instantly recover to its peak state. At that time, even the 12 divine beast primogenitors under the Lord of Chaos would die, to say nothing of Xing Hui. Are all the top experts in the outside world the evil god's subjects? Immortal Emperor Hai's heart was filled with fear when he sensed the powerful auras rapidly approaching from the outside world. According to his senses, the number of experts equivalent to heavenly lords, or in other words, great ability users, had already exceeded 3 digits. At the same time, even more experts of this level were hurrying over from even further away as if they were on a pilgrimage. They wanted to pay their respects to the supreme ruler of this chaotic universe, the evil god that Qing Su had sealed away in the void heaven ring. No matter what, we can't reveal our identities. At the same time, we can't let these people know that the supreme ruler in their hearts is sealed in the void heaven ring by us. Moreover, we can't let this evil god escape from the void heaven ring. Otherwise, once this evil god returns to his universe, he'll recover to his peak state in an instant. At that time, killing us will be as easy as crushing an ant. Xing Hui was about to think of a way to disguise his identity as he spoke when an enormous invisible consciousness rapidly circulated throughout the chaotic universe. This consciousness wasn't a real existence, but rather a human instinct that had spontaneously awakened after sensing something unusual. As the consciousness awakened, it seemed to sense Xing Hui's true self sealed in the void heaven ring and began to permeate the void heaven ring with great power. The evil god's true body in the void heaven ring immediately sensed the changes in the outside world. In an instant, his originally 10-meter-tall statue suddenly came to life, and a power that almost reached the level of an almighty erupted from his hand. In an instant, he instinctively formed a connection with the will of the outside world. Upon closer inspection, Xinghui discovered that the great master-level power erupting from the evil god was the result of him secretly refining the law fragment not long ago. You want to form a connection with the consciousness in the outside world? Seal it. Xinghui didn't care about anything else. The power of the laws of the Tao of Unity rapidly circulated, transforming into streaks of sword qi that swept across all directions, severing all the tentacles that the evil god's true body had extended to the void heaven ring. However, it would have been better if he hadn't severed the evil god's tentacles. As soon as he did, the tentacles turned into pieces of information that were absorbed by the consciousness in the outside world almost instinctively. After receiving this information, or rather, consciousness, the entire chaotic universe began to revolve with a loud rumble. Everything between heaven and earth seemed to be undergoing drastic changes. What Xinghui saw was that the laws of the world, which had originally been somewhat clear, had completely disappeared without a trace. The auras of the peak experts outside were also constantly plummeting. At this moment, the entire chaotic universe seemed to have sealed off all active energy fluctuations. Sealed off a world. He sealed off his own world. No, it should be called a universe. Sealed off his own universe. Xinghui immediately understood the evil god's true body's intentions. Sealing off a universe was akin to catching a turtle in a jar. As long as he couldn't leave this chaotic universe, the evil god, as the king of the universe, would one day be able to break through the void heaven ring's seal. When that time came, however, the situation was clearly much worse than Xinghui had imagined. Xinghui immediately activated the void heaven ring's sealing power to the maximum, but the information transmitted by the two consciousnesses just now was much more than he'd imagined. A majestic and vast voice instantly spread throughout the entire universe. The voice contained extremely detailed information. My subjects, a group of heretics has intruded into this sovereign's world. Now, this sovereign calls upon you to capture these two heretics and hand them over to this sovereign to deal with personally. This voice seemed to be transmitted by the instinctive consciousness of the chaotic universe, resounding in the minds of all intelligent beings. Even Xinghui and immortal Emperor Canghai were no exception. Not only did this voice resound in their minds, but it also contained detailed portraits of them, their life auras, and soul fluctuations. At the same time as this message was transmitted, the terrifying consciousness in the void that was powerful enough to maintain the operation of the chaotic universe descended with a loud rumble. Carrying a divine might far beyond what Xinghui could withstand, it locked onto Xinghui and immortal Emperor Canghai's figures and pointed out the direction for the hundreds of great experts outside the temple. It's over. Immortal Emperor Canghai wailed in despair. The enemy of the universe. This was the true enemy of the universe. Chapter 937. An outsider has invaded our world. How dare they? It's always been us conquering other worlds. No one has ever dared to target our universe. Where did this outsider come from? How dare they act so recklessly? I've been invincible in our universe for far too long. It's a pity that the great Lord of Burning Blood wasn't willing to take me with him in the last war, so I didn't have the honor of fighting other beings of the Chaos Verse. In the previous rounds of attacks, the invading worlds were weak and didn't give me a chance to display my strength. Now that an outsider has invaded our universe, let's see what kind of ability these beings who can traverse the void have. The powerful beings outside the Eternal Shrine exuded a terrifying aura of life and rapidly approached it. Zabulu, Teblink of the Dawn Church, resplendent star of the Grey Tower, and Long Chi of the City of Myriad Worlds, who had dared to announce themselves in front of the Lord of Burning Blood, strode forward with great strides, looking like they were about to barge into the Eternal Shrine. They're here. So many Heavenly Monarch Realm great divine abilities. 300, no, at least 400 Heavenly Monarch Realm great divine abilities, especially the 4 leaders. They've definitely reached the level of absolute masters. No one can resist this force. Even if they were to surround and kill the divine beast primogenitor, it wouldn't be a problem. Despair filled immortal Emperor Songhai's eyes. He was only an exalted immortal emperor, the equivalent of a ruler in the cultivation system of the Lord of Chaos. He wasn't even a great master yet, so any one of the approaching 400 great masters had the power to kill him. Even though Tsinghui had the strength to stand above the god ranking, he still didn't have the confidence to face off against several hundred great masters. Besides, it had only been a short while since more than 400 great masters had gathered outside the Eternal Shrine. Even though the Eternal Shrine was located in a special location and was essentially a gathering place for experts, it was still possible to infer that there were at least 2,000 great masters in this part of the Chaos Verse. Once he was entangled with these 400 great divine arts practitioners, the 2,000 great divine arts practitioners would rush over and only death would await him. I can't force my way in. Tsinghui's mind spun rapidly as his gaze landed on the will that permeated the entire Chaos Verse. If he guessed correctly, that will was probably equivalent to what the immortal Tao civilization called the Celestial Will. Since the evil god, the Lord of Searing Blood, had extracted most of his consciousness and power from this world, forming a powerful combination of power that was equivalent to his true form and infiltrating the Lord of Chaos Verse, the Lord of Searing Blood didn't have much consciousness left in his own Chaos Verse. He could only follow his instincts and maintain the normal operation of his Chaos Verse, which gave the Lord of Searing Blood an opportunity. I'm a Chaos life form. Chaos life forms don't have a fixed form, and their essence is completely identical to the Lord of Burning Blood. In other words, I can imitate the Lord of Burning Blood's incarnation. With that thought, the law fragment that Tsinghui had yet to hand over to the evil god, the Lord of Burning Blood, appeared in his hand. With the power of the uniting Tao and the illusory immortal Tao civilization, he almost instantly analyzed the power of law contained within the law fragment. His aura also changed rapidly in the process, and even his appearance changed slightly. As Tsinghui gained the characteristics of the Lord of Searing Blood's great Tao, he keenly sensed an indescribable connection between himself and the Chaos Verse. He felt as if he was a dragon swimming in the ocean. Everything in the ocean revolved around him. He had truly become the center of the entire chaotic universe. It was as if he could change the will of the entire chaotic universe with a single thought. However, the sensation didn't last long. A vast and mighty will descended upon him from the void and locked onto him, but it wasn't as hostile as it had been before. With his keen senses, Tsinghui could vaguely sense the confusion and bewilderment in the will. It clearly couldn't understand why Tsinghui's law fluctuations were almost identical to his own. It looks like I won't be able to hide it for long. Tsinghui's heart sank when he sensed the will spying on him, but his expression didn't change. Lord Tsinghui, what are you? Immortal Emperor Songhai watched as Tsinghui's aura rapidly changed, and a trace of confusion appeared on his despairing face. Whoosh! Tsinghui sensed the peak experts rapidly approaching from the outside. With a wave of his hand, the power of law enveloped immortal Emperor Songhai, causing him to become blurry. At the same time, the 4 supreme experts and many cultivators with great abilities finally made it into the Divine Hall. Their gazes landed on Qing Su as soon as they entered. When these people's gazes fell on Tsinghui, Tsinghui unhesitatingly used the law of the Burning Blood Lord as a cover and fully released his aura, which was equivalent to that of a 10-vein or even 11-vein expert. For a moment, a vast and resplendent shadow of the universe seemed to appear above his head. The projection of this shadow formed an inconceivable pressure that fiercely attacked the 4 sovereigns and the many great masters who had broken into the temple. Immediately, these great masters who had broken into the temple were shaken. Some of the great masters with weaker wills and lower cultivation bases felt the terrifying pressure from Tsinghui's body, which was not something they could possess. After sensing the law aura that belonged to the Burning Blood Lord, they actually knelt down and respectfully shouted, "Greetings, my lord. My people, I have sent down a clone to assist you in hunting down the 2 otherworldly visitors. Now, what are you waiting for?" Qing Su ignored the regular great ability masters who had knelt on the ground due to his pressure. Instead, he looked at the 4 sovereigns at the front as well as over a dozen experts who were close to the level of sovereigns. His eyes were filled with extremely great pressure. My lord, the great priest who was the leader of the four sovereigns, who was roughly equivalent to a grand expansion sacred exalt, bowed hesitantly and said, but, according to the guidance of your will, the otherworldly visitors seem to be in this temple. We don't know where the otherworldly visitors went the moment they arrived in our universe. Because of this, I immediately used what little power I had to seal off the entire chaotic universe to prevent them from escaping. Now, what you need to do is find them for me as soon as possible and inform me. When the time comes, I will personally head over and capture them in one fell swoop. I will interrogate them for the coordinates of their universe and begin a new expedition. High Priest Zabulu sensed the omnipresent and mighty will that towered above the 9 heavens. Even though the will of the universe seemed to indicate that the target was in the shrine, compared to before, the will of the universe had clearly become a little blurry, as though it was no longer certain of the location of the otherworldly visitors. In addition, this being exuding a terrifying pressure indeed carried the power of laws of the Master of the Universe, the Burning Blood Lord. As the High Priest, Zabulu didn't dare to resist or question it. He could only respectfully reply, in accordance with the will of my lord, we will definitely find those otherworldly invaders and bring them to you. After saying that, he bowed respectfully and retreated. Seeing that great priest Zabulu had retreated, the other 3 sovereigns and existences who were close to the level of a sovereign bowed at the same time and retreated out of the temple with reverence. Then, they quickly left in groups of 3 to 5 and flew off in all directions. Phew! Xinghui heaved a sigh of relief when he saw these powerful existences leave one after another. Beside him, Immortal Emperor Tsunghai opened his mouth in disbelief. He wanted to ask what had happened, but he did not know where to start. The will of the universe is ultimately a big problem. Xinghui raised his head and glanced at the will of the universe that was still hovering above him in the sky with a heavy heart. The will of the universe was constantly looking at him. Although he had temporarily fooled the will of the universe by relying on the law fragment of the Burning Blood Lord, it would not take long for the will of the universe to detect him. After all, the difference between the Burning Blood Lord and the will of the universe was equivalent to the difference between the original body and the incarnation. He could deceive others, but he could not deceive the incarnation of the Burning Blood Lord. Once the will of the universe discovered his true identity, it would lead other powerful existences to chase after him. No matter how many tricks he had up his sleeves, he would only be annihilated by thousands of powerful existences. I have to avoid the will of the universe. Qing Su was in a hurry, but he just happened to have no better ideas. He did not even dare to leave the Eternal Temple for fear that this action would arouse the will of the universe's suspicion and lead to disaster. Lord Xinghui, what should we do next? Immortal Emperor Tsunghai was clearly flustered. Immortal Emperor Tsunghai's reaction was completely reasonable for a ruler to be pursued by thousands of powerful existences. Next. Xinghui could not think of a better idea. In the end, he could only look at the spatial creation artifact that had been teleported here with him and refined from a part of the Burning Blood Lord's body. We can only pray that the will of the universe does not detect our presence for the time being. At the same time, we have to increase our strength as quickly as possible before it does. Xinghui paused for a moment. The correct way to put it was for Xinghui to increase his strength as quickly as possible. If he could refine the fragments of the laws of the 12 divine beasts and become a true creature of chaos, he would definitely be able to kill the clearly weakened Lord of Burning Blood easily. At that time, all the wealth he had accumulated over countless years would belong to him, Qing Su. Even if he couldn't break through and become a true chaos life form, as long as he could refine the 12 types of Grand Tao laws, his combat strength would still skyrocket by several times. At that time, if dozens or hundreds of powerful existences attacked him, he would be completely capable of swiftly killing them and retreating swiftly. Even though it would still be dangerous, he wouldn't have to entrust his life and death to an unknown fate like he did now. Thinking of this, he awakened Scarlet Abyss without hesitation. Scarlet Abyss, it's up to you now. I will do my best to help you refine this spatial creation artifact. I don't expect you to completely refine it, as long as you can first open a hole for me to take out the item inside. In addition, the will of the entire universe had been hovering in the void, constantly communicating with Tsing-Hui. From its increasingly intense actions, it was not difficult to determine that the patience and suspicion of the will of the universe had reached its limit. Lord of Searing Blood's true body, which had been sealed by Tsing-Hui in the Void Heaven Ring, was constantly trying to break out of the Void Heaven Ring and return to his chaotic universe. For 100 years, Tsing-Hui had been completely in a precarious situation. Any exposed flaw could lead to unmanageable consequences. Under such tremendous pressure, Tsing-Hui's refinement of the nomological fragments had reached its peak. Originally, it would have taken him 200 years to refine the divine beast law of White Dragon, but in 100 years, he had thoroughly understood the mysteries of creation. You can give it a try now. Tsing-Hui's gaze fell on immortal Emperor Shanghai. I've just mastered the power of the law of creation. Next, I have a method that will allow you to reincarnate and completely change your life and soul fluctuations. This will allow you to avoid the will of the universe and even the pursuit of many great masters. However, the biggest problem with this method is that before you awaken, you'll always be in a weak state. If you encounter any danger at this time, you'll truly die. Therefore, I need you to make a choice. How long can we last without being discovered by the will of the universe? Immortal Emperor Shanghai asked. Tsing-Hui raised his head and glanced at the will of the universe that was staring at him and had already mobilized the power of laws to penetrate his body. After a moment of consideration, he said, I don't know how long I can last. According to the reaction of the will of the universe, it may be the next moment, or it may be another 100 or 200 years. In other words, you can only last 100 or 200 years at most? Tsing-Hui nodded. I choose to reincarnate. Immortal Emperor Shanghai said solemnly. Tsing-Hui looked at Immortal Emperor Shanghai with some guilt in his heart. If he hadn't asked Immortal Emperor Shanghai for help, Immortal Emperor Shanghai wouldn't have ended up like this. How could the evil god's scheme be something that people like them could easily resist? I've learned a little during this period of time. The chaotic universe of the Burning Blood Lord is somewhat similar to that of the Lord of Gods. It's composed of many planes. These planes can be divided from small to large into secondary planes, primary planes, and higher planes, which roughly correspond to the 4 stages of the Saint Realm, and Chaos Realm. I'll send you to a relatively peaceful secondary plane. I hope you can grow up safely in that world and complete the transformation of your life aura and soul aura. Reaching there, Qing Su paused slightly. The secondary plane is safe, but there's a drawback, and that's that it grows slower, so your awakening time will be slightly longer. However, I'll leave an imprint on you. If you haven't awakened yet, I'll go to the secondary plane to find you. Of course I trust you, Lord Tsing-Hui. Therefore, I'll have to ask you to help me, Lord Tsing-Hui. Immortal Emperor Shanghai had lived for countless years, so he tried his best to appear magnanimous at this time to avoid too much psychological burden on Tsing-Hui. There's no time to lose. Let's go now. Tsing-Hui said. He wrapped Immortal Emperor Shanghai with the power of laws and walked out of the Eternal Shrine. Almost as soon as Tsing-Hui walked out of the Eternal Shrine, the auras of more than a dozen great masters and the will of the original operation of the universe descended from the sky at the same time and locked onto Tsing-Hui. Among the great masters, a man whose battle strength was close to that of a sovereign respectfully asked, My lord, do you have any orders for us? This was Alia, a high priest and the most capable assistant of the high priest. It's been 100 years, and you still haven't brought me any useful information. You've truly disappointed me, and I've lost my patience with you. Thus, I don't intend to continue waiting like this. I will personally go to find those otherworldly invaders and capture them. Tsing-Hui said indifferently. My lord, please give us some more time. Your people promise you that we'll definitely bring you satisfactory answers in 300 years at most. Alia said respectfully. However, he stood in front of Tsing-Hui's path and did not intend to let him leave. Moreover, 300 years, that in itself represented something. This was because Tsing-Hui could not last another 300 years under the watchful eyes of the universe's will. Even 200 years was a problem. Ha! Who gave you the courage to block my path? Tsing Hui's expression suddenly became extremely stern. Before Alia, who was not inferior to Great Emperor Qishao, could react, he had already unsheathed his sword. The Scarlet Abyss sword was based on the Coalescence Great Tao and surrounded by other Great Tao laws. Finally, it was disguised by the power of laws of the Burning Blood Lord's power of laws and slashed straight at Alia. In an instant, the sword wind formed a sword chi storm, causing Alia, who wanted to block it, to retreat rapidly. Even so, he was still a little slower. The sword chi that erupted from the Scarlet Abyss sword carried the power to cut through the void and pierced countless holes in Alia's body. Moreover, it plowed out of the Eternal Shrine with undiminished momentum, leaving behind 100 million kilometer-wide chasm in the void outside the shrine. Looking at the law fragment that was about to be exhausted, his expression darkened. I have to hurry as well. But I've already comprehended the law of creation, so it won't be difficult for me to awaken my memories. Tsing Hui's eyes darted around. Soon, a large territory tens of millions of kilometers away from here attracted his attention. Because he was currently in the state of fusing with the law fragment of the Burning Blood Lord, he had almost obtained full authority over the entire chaotic universe. Relying on the wonders of this authority, he faintly sensed that there was a considerable mystery hidden in that territory, as if there was a passage that extended beyond the main plane and even into the distant chaotic void. Could it be that there's a way to smuggle me out of this world in that territory? This thought flashed through Tsing Hui's mind. However, the will of the universe was about to enter this world, so he didn't have much time to think. First, he poured all the power in his body into the Void Heaven Ring in his hand, reinforcing the Void Heaven Ring's seal to prevent Burning Blood Lord from escaping during this period of time. Meanwhile, he refined the small world that belonged to Burning Blood Lord into the Scarlet Abyss Sword, then put the Scarlet Abyss Sword back into his body. Rumble. Just as Tsing Hui was about to activate the law of creation and turn into a beam of light and fly toward that territory, a terrifying shockwave spread out. Under the influence of a great force, the entire main plane seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Not good. Tsing Hui's expression changed. Someone wants to destroy this plane. I have to lure them away. He'd actually overlooked this point. With that in mind, he forcefully split off a portion of his soul and fused it back into the law fragment that belonged to the Burning Blood Lord. Forcefully splitting his soul without any preparation at all immediately dealt severe damage to Qing Su's consciousness. The intense pain knocked him unconscious on the spot. As he fainted, all he could do was vaguely give an order to the power of the soul he had split off from his clone, lure them away. Lure all of the pursuers away to another plane. The farther away, the better. Chapter 939. He did not know how much time had passed. The injury caused by the forceful splitting of his god's soul was slightly alleviated. Tsing Hui, who was in a daze, suddenly woke up. Tsing Hui, who opened his eyes, was keenly aware of the abnormality of his body. However, it was right that he was different. In order to avoid the prying eyes of the will of the universe, he used the law of creation to reshape himself from the inside out. It would be strange if he was still exactly the same as before. Tsing Hui looked around. This was a rather spacious courtyard. The scenery of the courtyard was extremely charming, and it showed that this family was rich and powerful. Considering that he had chosen to reshape his life as a great feudal lord, this kind of treatment was reasonable. He looked at his own body. He should be 100 years old, which meant that he had lost consciousness for at least 100 years. In the past 100 years, this life had instinctively derived a consciousness, but this consciousness had been completely devoured by Tsing Hui the moment he woke up. Tsing Hui closed his eyes and carefully recalled, although that consciousness was a derivative of his main consciousness, Tsing Hui himself was a powerhouse who had climbed to the peak of cultivation. If he did not take into account the fact that he was ganged up on, his cultivation base could easily defeat anyone except for the will of the universe. With such a strong foundation, the consciousness he derived had been extremely outstanding since young. In just 100 years, it had cultivated the cultivation system of this world to the intermediate silver level. The cultivation system of this world was much simpler than the cultivation system of the Lord of Chaos. It could be roughly divided into 11 major realms: mortal, transcendent, iron, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, astral, moonlight, glorious sun, and legendary. Because this world greatly suppressed the power of law, the mortal and transcendent realms directly included the immortality realm and the saint realm. Above that was iron to legendary, which corresponded to the 6 divine realms and the 3 chaotic realms. The intermediate silver level was equivalent to the vacuum-crushing level in the divine realm. It didn't seem very high, but because the resources in the mortal plane weren't as plentiful as those in the higher realms, most people would choose to leave the mortal plane and enter the higher realms after reaching the astral rank. As a result, there were usually only a few hundred or even a few dozen astral and moonlight ranks in the mortal plane. That was the rank from world creation to autarch. In other words, the cultivation level of a main plane was similar to that of the Kun Dragon world and the True Sun world, but its surface area was much larger. Under such circumstances, a 100-year-old void-shattering realm expert was naturally outstanding. Xing Hui took a look at the memories and heaved a sigh of relief. It seems that the will of the universe did not see through my disguise at the last moment. In the end, he looked at his bracelet. This bracelet was the Void Heaven Ring, which was his companion. As for what was sealed inside, needless to say, it was naturally the Burning Blood Lord. In the final moment when he used the laws of creation, he channeled most of his power into the Void Heaven Ring and sealed up the Lord of Burning Blood. As a result, the Lord of Burning Blood, who was already extremely weak, became completely feeble after intimidating Qing Su. When Qing Su used the laws of creation to reincarnate, the Lord of Burning Blood also sank into a state of slumber, never waking up even now. Fortunately, I haven't woken up yet. Otherwise, if the Burning Blood Lord started to cause trouble now, I really wouldn't have any way to stop him. Xing Hui withdrew his gaze from the Void Heaven Ring and quickly sensed the immortal Tao civilization in the depths of his mental world. Too much power had been used to seal the Void Heaven Ring, so the immortal Tao civilization's illusory world also looked a little dim. Fortunately, the foundation of the immortal Tao civilization was the creation jade, so its foundation was impregnable. Even if the immortal Tao civilization dimmed, it showed no signs of collapse. As long as he spent some time recovering, the immortal Tao civilization would be able to shine again. He could also slowly refine the other 3 law fragments into the Unity Great Tao and complete the 3rd level of the Tao Disc. The laws of this world have almost been completely sealed off by the will of the universe. Xing Hui frowned slightly after sensing the great Tao laws in the world. At this rate, it'll take 30 to 40,000 years for this world to recover to its peak. Only then can I begin to refine the law fragments. The recovery rate is more than 100 times slower than in the Lord of Chaos domain. Even if I can enter the chaos, I can still compress the recovery time to less than 3,000 years. Xing Hui recalled the faint passageway that seemed to be connected to the chaos in this domain, and immediately reinvigorated himself. If he wanted to escape this world, he would probably have to make a move on this family. Let me see what's so special about this family. Xing Hui spread his divine will at once, enveloping this large domain that spanned over 100,000 kilometers. Against the power of laws, this world calls it extraordinary power. The will of the universe's suppression of extraordinary power is truly formidable. According to the information I received before, 200 years ago, before I came to this universe, the Pinnacle Platinum Champions could still destroy a mountain range over 10,000 kilometers in a single blow despite the universe suppressing the display of extraordinary power. Legendary champions at the Pinnacle could even destroy a main plane with a diameter of 100 trillion kilometers in a single blow, but 200 years ago, the activity of extraordinary factors in the universe fell to an unprecedented low. Today, even a Pinnacle Platinum champion would tire himself half to death just to destroy a mountain range over 1,000 kilometers in a single blow, let alone a mountain range over 10,000 kilometers in a single blow. The direct effect of the decreased activity of extraordinary factors was a decrease in destructive power. However, Tsing Hui understood that the greatest effect was actually the ability to travel between planes, making it extremely difficult to cross the barriers between universes. Without extraordinary factors, it was equivalent to not being able to borrow the power of laws. Without the power of laws, it was almost impossible to transcend this chaotic universe and escape into the chaos. This was a change made by the will of the universe to trap him. It was equivalent to turning the entire chaotic universe into a prison to imprison an intruder like him. If it's only because I offended the Burning Blood Lord, he shouldn't have mobilized so many people to deal with me. There's an 80 to 90% chance that he guessed that the Fortune Divine Jade Fragment is with me, because he was the one who stole the Fortune Divine Jade Fragment from the Primal Chaos Master. He also knows that the Fortune Divine Jade is in the Divine Wilderness Great World, and that I was born in the Divine Wilderness Great World and rose to power in such a short period of time. After understanding the cause and effect of this matter, Tsing Hui was even more anxious to escape from this chaotic universe. This family. There's a very strange area in this area. It doesn't seem to have any secrets, but in fact, it's because of an extremely clever disguise. Unfortunately, I can't see through this disguise in my current state. If I'm not mistaken, the secret of this territory that I learned 100 years ago is hidden in that area. Tsing Hui's divine sense swept the area for a moment before quickly withdrawing it. His power system was different from the power system of this world. Even if it was of a much higher grade than this world's, he didn't dare to use it without restraint, lest someone use some special technique to detect it. Annie, why are you still here? The elders of the Council of Elders are about to arrive. Every time they leave the mountain, they'll select a few disciples and bring them back to the ancestral land for training. Even if we can't be chosen by the elders, if we perform well, we'll be able to raise the ranking of our family's successors and receive resources for the next 10 years. Just as Tsing Hui was digesting the information left behind by this body, an anxious voice sounded. At the same time, a woman who was much older than him arrived. Thanks to the memories of this body, Tsing Hui quickly figured out who this woman was. She was Angie, this body's older sister. I'll be right there. Tsing Hui said. Thanks to your age, your ranking has risen from 109th to 94th. You've made it into the top 100. You're the one closest to success in our bloodline. No matter what, you have to fight for our honor. Even if you don't want to go to the ancestral land, you have to get more resources. Only then will you have hope of becoming an elder of the family and leading our bloodline to prosperity. Angie pulled Tsing Hui toward the center of the territory. The ancestral land? Tsing Hui thought carefully and immediately understood. The ancestral land of the An family was the special area that had been disguised by an extremely clever method. Very good, Tsing Hui's thoughts turned, and he quickly asked, I want to compete for the opportunity to go to the ancestral land. What do you think? The An family was one of the top aristocratic families. There were dozens of astral realm ancestors in the family. However, Tsing Hui had just used the power of the illusory immortal Tao world to sense that there were many legend rank experts hidden in the family. However, these people were hidden very well. Even Tsing Hui couldn't catch their real traces. Go to the ancestral land? The possibility is too low. If you want to go to the ancestral land, only the number one person in the 3 groups has the right to go. If you had your current cultivation 10 years ago, there would be a glimmer of hope. But now, you're 109 years old. You've been divided from the youth group under 100 years old to the youth group between 100 and 300 years old. There are dozens of people in the youth group who are at the intermediate silver rank like you. The most outstanding ones, Angie, Anya, and Anthony, are all at the beginner gold rank. You don't have much hope against them. That's not necessarily true. Angie, Anya, and Anthony, the youngest of the 3, Anya, is already over 240 years old. I'm only 109 years old. If we're both at the gold rank, I believe that the ancestor will choose me in the end, not them. Angie was stunned by Tsing Hui's words, both at the gold rank. The next moment, she was pleasantly surprised. You're at the gold rank? How is that possible? There's a crucial factor between the gold and silver ranks, and that's to condense a gold body. To do that, you need a lot of resources. Since you've only broken through to the intermediate silver rank less than 10 years ago, our family hasn't started preparing for you. How did you? Just wait and see, Angie. Sing Hui said as he strode towards the training ground. He had been known as a genius since he was young. So, if he were to appear even more monstrous, and use his talent to come into contact with the family's hidden passage to the chaotic void, then sneak out, that would be the best choice. If you become an iron human, you can live up to 600 years old. Then, you will reach the bronze life stage, silver life stage, gold life stage, and platinum life stage. Every increase in cultivation level is a sublimation of life, which can increase your lifespan to 800 years old, 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old, and 3,000 years old. This was also the reason why the An family referred to those under 100 years old as the juvenile group, those between 100 and 300 years old as the youth group, and those above 300 years old as the adult group. Life sublimation. Starlight, moonlight, sun, and finally, legendary life. Qing Su carefully went over the cultivation system of this world in his mind. It felt like he was evolving toward a chaos life form. However, he had yet to come into contact with the cultivation method above starlight, so he didn't know if this conjecture was true or not. If it was true, then it was necessary to collect the cultivation system of this world. He had been able to evolve into a chaos life form purely by chance, relying on the fortune jade. Compared to the chaos life form that cultivated step by step, he was equivalent to someone who had started out halfway, and his foundation was completely incomparable. If he could supplement this foundation, his process of evolving into a chaos life form after cultivating the third level of the Tao disc would be much smoother. An E, over here. An E is here. Brother An E, are you going to go on stage this time and show off your talents to the esteemed elders? While Tsing Hui was pondering, Angie had already brought him to the spectator stand where the people of her lineage were. For a moment, a dozen youths gathered around at the same time, and even some of the elders of their lineage had their eyes on Tsing Hui. An E, how about it? Do you want to go up and give it a try? Among the elders, a middle-aged man with an advanced gold cultivation said with a hint of encouragement. Tsing Hui quickly recognized this person through An Yi's memories. It was the patriarch of his lineage, Ankano. Ankano's lineage was ranked around 95th or 96th among the 400 branches of the An family, which was considered to be above average. The ones with the greatest authority in the family were the patriarch, Ankano, who was an intermediate deacon, and his current body's father, An Suo. However, it was all thanks to Qing Su that An Suo could become an intermediate attendant of the clan. The reason why his lineage was able to rise from the top 100 to the top 100 was also because of his outstanding performance since young. This was also the reason why everyone in his lineage was filled with anticipation for him. Tsing Hui met everyone's gaze with a smile. Of course I'm going to give it a try. I gained a lot from my training outside 4 years ago. Patriarch An Yi said. He said that he condensed a gold body and broke through to the gold rank. Anya, who was like a blabbermouth at the side, couldn't wait to speak. Gold rank? Ankano was stunned for a moment before he was overjoyed. An E, is what Angie said true? You really condensed a gold body and stepped into the gold life realm? Oh my god. This is unbelievable. An E actually broke through to the gold rank. A gold rank at the age of 109. An E is definitely the most outstanding genius in the An family in the past 100 years. He's comparable to the third elder's granddaughter, An Weiwei. An Weiwei broke through to the gold rank when she was 108 years old. Now, she's only 210 years old, and she's already at the pinnacle of the platinum rank. She just needs an opportunity to ignite the starlight and step into the starlight realm to become the youngest elder in the An family in the past 1,000 years. An Yi's branch suddenly burst into uncontrollable exclamations, and the sound quickly spread out. What? And he condensed a gold body and broke through to the gold rank? That fellow Enkano is really lucky. Such a genius was actually born from his lineage. And he has been known as a genius since he was young. He was only at the intermediate silver rank in the last competition, right? I didn't expect him to break through so quickly. He's already surpassed his peers. All sorts of discussions were heard. Enkano intentionally added fuel to the fire. Soon, it spread to the second floor of the conference hall. The senior deacons, grand deacons, and elders in the conference hall heard about it. What's going on over there? After a while, a female elder who looked to be in her 30s and was full of grace and elegance finally asked about this matter. Elder Angela, it's a little genius from Enkano's lineage. He's outstanding. I heard that he condensed a gold body and became a gold life realm at the age of 109. A senior deacon who belonged to the female elder's lineage replied with a smile beside her. Condensed a gold body at the age of 109? Elder Angela smiled and looked at a middle-aged man beside her. Elder Angus, this little genius talent is comparable to your granddaughter's. The middle-aged man was chatting with the current patriarch, Nan. He pondered for a moment and nodded after hearing Elder Angela's words. Indeed, he's very talented. The most outstanding ones in this year's competition are Onli, Anya, and Anthony. I originally planned to take one or two of them away. Since this little guy called an E is so outstanding, I'll let him go. If he really condenses a gold body, it means that he has a lot of potential in his family. When the time comes, I'll bring him to the ancestral land to train him. That's right. Elder, I'll let him go and show his cultivation base. Please take a look, Elder. As Nan spoke, he summoned a guard and passed down the order. Soon, the guard passed the order to Patriarch Enkano, who told Xinghui with a surprised expression, Ani, that's great. The 3rd elder and the 10th elder have heard about your talent. They hope that you'll participate in the next round. When the time comes, you must perform well. As long as the 2 elders are satisfied with your performance, there's a high chance that you'll be brought to the ancestral land by the 2 elders. Xinghui nodded. His goal was to go to the ancestral land and find out the truth about this mysterious family. Just the gold body alone isn't amazing enough. I can't guarantee that I'll win. Moreover, I need to build a foundation for my performance. Then, it's best that I condense a perfect gold body. Xinghui quickly came up with a plan. This cultivation system required one to temper one's body at the iron, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and beyond. According to the degree of tempering, the body was usually divided into 3 ranks: ordinary, excellent, and perfect. The difference between these 3 ranks was very small. If the cultivator didn't use his full strength, no one would know the rank of the body, and it wouldn't affect the subsequent breakthroughs. Even if the cultivator broke through with an ordinary body, they could still step into the astral rank. However, this was related to the cultivator's future development potential. As a peak expert, Qing Su understood after some careful analysis from these classifications. An ordinary body would not only be able to reach the starlight rank, but reaching the moonlight rank would also be a piece of cake. However, reaching the glorious sun rank would be extremely difficult, while an excellent body would be stuck at the bottleneck of legendary life forms. Although it was not impossible to break through in their entire lives, they would have to put in 10 times, or even several dozen times more effort than their predecessors for even a sliver of hope. Only by tempering the body with a perfect gold body would one be able to smoothly reach the legendary rank. And he did refine an excellent body at the iron rank, but the bronze and silver ranks are just ordinary bodies. Xinghui thought to himself as the power of the laws of the grand path of unity poured down from the illusory immortal Tao civilization and began to cleanse and batter his body. The grand path of unity was his fundamental great path, equivalent to the foundation of his chaos life form. Compared to the so-called gold, platinum, and even legendary life forms, the chaos life form was undoubtedly much stronger. Under the cleansing of the chaos life form's fundamental foundation, the flaws he'd left behind in the iron, bronze, and silver ranks were silently fixed. Soon, The silver body that had been fixed to its perfect form transformed once more. A perfect gold body was formed in a matter of breaths without alerting anyone. At this moment, the duel on the stage was announced to be over, and the next round was about to begin. Under the personal guidance of the clan leader's personal guard, Xing Hui stepped forward and walked towards the center of the arena. Chapter 941. Xing Hui was led to the stage by the guard. Before the platinum-level guard could step down, a figure had already stepped onto the stage impatiently. It was the famous gold ranker of the younger generation, Anthony. Anthony looked at Xing Hui in front of him and roared, "What do you have to be chosen by the elders in advance? Now, let me break your strong appearance and let the elders see who is the most outstanding existence in the youth group." Xing Hui looked at the angry Anthony in front of him and knew that what he did was against the interests of others. However, he was too lazy to explain too much to a divine true body level practitioner. He made a "do whatever you want" gesture and stood there quietly, waiting for him to attack. "You're courting death." It was a simple action, but Anthony was completely enraged. He roared and his body suddenly grew from less than 2 meters to 4 meters. His body was emitting a golden light. This was a secret technique that only gold rankers could master, the golden battle form. Die! After revealing his golden battle form, Anthony threw a punch with the advantage of being in a higher position. It carried the force of Mount Tai as it smashed towards Xing Hui. The friction between the pure force and the air created a deafening roar. It was like a thunderbolt exploding from the ground. It blew up the air in front of him, and at the same time, it seemed like the weak creature in front of him was blown up as well. It seemed like Xing Hui faced the attack of the giant in front of him. He leaned his left foot forward and moved his right foot back. He stood sideways and squatted slightly. Then, his right hand moved slightly backward, clenched into a fist, and bent. At the moment when the gigantic monster's terrifying attack was about to descend, he punched out with a loud bang. The dust where Xing Hui was standing was rolled up by the force of his punch, forming a sharp tornado. It instantly collided with the thunderbolt attack of Anthony's golden battle form. Boom! The ground was struck by a thunderbolt. Crack! The sound of countless stone slabs shattering resounded throughout the battlefield. The shockwave formed by the collision of the two fists swept across the ground, causing the arena to shatter into pieces. Countless stone fragments floated in the air due to this terrifying shockwave. In the next second, they were swept away by a terrifying storm and spread out wildly, covering an area of 1,000 meters around the arena. If it wasn't for the defensive force field in the arena, this collapsing force would have swept up the stone fragments and rushed in all directions, smashing all life forms below the iron body level into pieces. That's it. Xing Hui did not seem to notice that his legs had sunk into the ground. He continued to provoke Anthony with his eyes. Anthony looked at Xing Hui. Qing Su only needed a single punch to knock him out, forcing him to the ground. Thank you for your cooperation. Xing Hui moved his body slightly and pulled out half of his body that was embedded in the ground. You won. Anthony gasped violently and looked at Xing Hui with disbelief in his eyes. Without the golden battle body, how could you withstand my attacks for so long? You'll know when you find out. Qing Su smiled faintly. Even though he had not expended much effort to deal with Anthony, in order to make himself appear more normal, he also acted like he was panting for air, like he was at the end of his rope. That's great. You won. Annie, you won. You actually defeated Anthony. Now, no one will doubt you when you go to the ancestral land. When the battle ended, Ankano and the others rushed over with excited expressions. Xing Hui nodded slightly. Soon, the Patriarch's guard came to Xing Hui again and said with a smile, Annie? The Patriarch and the elders want you to go over. Follow me. Go, Annie. You must be respectful in front of the elders. Ankano said. Sing Hui smiled. He wanted to sneak into the Yin family's ancestral land and find out the Yin family's secret. Naturally, he wouldn't throw a tantrum over such a small matter. He followed the guard to the second floor. As soon as they reached the second floor, Elder Angela was the first to walk over. "Annie?" "Greetings, Elder Angela." "Not bad, young man. It seems like Ankano has taught a genius recently," Angela said with a smile. "Ha, young man, let me take a look." Ankano laughed and patted Sing Hui's shoulder. As soon as he patted Sing Hui's shoulder, an invisible energy immediately penetrated Sing Hui's body. Sing Hui knew Ankano was probing his foundation, so he pretended not to notice and bowed again. After confirming that Sing Hui had indeed cultivated the perfect body, Ankano's smile widened. "Good, young man. Your foundation is very solid. Go and tell your family that you'll follow us back to the ancestral land in half a month." In other words, Ankano had promised Lin Huang a spot to cultivate in the ancestral land. Under the envious gazes of many senior deacons and senior deacons, Sing Hui bowed again. "Thank you, third elder. You deserve it." As Angus spoke, he got someone to take Ching Su away first. "Perfect body." And Nan and Angela came up to him and asked. "It is indeed the perfect body, but I don't know if he can maintain it when he reaches the platinum rank. If he can, there is a small chance that our family will give birth to a legendary being in the future." Ankano nodded and said to Nan, "Investigate his background. If there are no problems, we'll bring him back to the ancestral land and train him." "Okay, leave it to me." And Nan nodded. Their conversation could be described as secretive, but Ching Su, who had already descended to the second floor, heard it extremely clearly. Ching Su did not worry about that at all. The mysteries of the laws of fortune ranked at the very top among the 3,000 ways. Let alone Elder Angus, even the legendary life forms equivalent to great ability users hidden in the ancestral grounds would not be able to find anything wrong with his reincarnation. His origins were definitely clean. Half a month passed by quickly. Under the expectant and envious gazes of Ankano and the others, Ching Su, Angus, Angela, and the other elders boarded a worship-like building and headed towards the Yin clan's ancestral grounds. Even though extraordinary powers were restricted, the Yin family's territory was still hundreds of thousands of kilometers wide. The ancestral land was in a mountain range with a diameter of 3,000 kilometers, called the Mountain of Peace. There were many restrictions and traps around the mountain range, and many elite members of the Yin family were guarding it. Anyone who barged in would not be able to escape the fate of death. Even moonlight rankers were no exception. However, Sing Hui knew that with the Yin family's hidden strength, not to mention moonlight rankers, even legendary beings would die if they barged into the ancestral land. The ship traveled forward, passing through countless checkpoints, and finally entered the Mountain of Peace where the ancestral land was located. As soon as they entered the mountain range, Sing Hui clearly felt that the space around them had become abnormal, vaguely resembling a subsidiary world. Originally, this subsidiary world should have been hidden very well and should not have been detected by Sing Hui. However, it seemed that the universe's consciousness had sealed off the entire chaotic universe, causing this abnormality to appear in this subsidiary world, allowing Sing Hui to detect it immediately. This Yin family is not ordinary, Sing Hui thought to himself. The ship they were on had already stopped at a platform. On the platform, there were already 2 elders waiting there. These 2 elders looked like they were only at the astral rank, which was the standard of creating a world with a thought. However, Sing Hui could see through the enormous energy hidden deep within them at first glance. It was a terrifying energy that was not inferior to legendary beings. Chapter 942. For the next 10 years, you will be receiving guidance from the 2 elders of the ancestral land. Elder Angus, who led the group, led the 6 selected people to the 2 elders of the ancestral land. At the same time, he said respectfully, "Elders, I'll have to trouble you with these 6 little fellows. Their identities have been fully verified, and they are absolutely trustworthy. After saying that, he secretly glanced in the direction of Tsing Hui. In addition, among these 6 little fellows, one has cultivated a perfect body. He cultivated a perfect body through his own efforts. One of the 2 elders glanced at Tsing Hui and nodded secretly. Okay, I understand. You may leave. Yes, then I'll take my leave first. After saying that, Angus left and handed the 6 people to the 2 elders of the ancestral land. Of the 6 people, only 4 were actually selected by the martial arts arena. The other 2 were obviously seeds with potential that were secretly cultivated. One of the 2 elders of the ancestral land stepped forward and looked at the 4 people indifferently. You can call me Qin Zhao. I'm mainly responsible for guiding your cultivation. The other one is Elder Wuyan. He's responsible for teaching you how to survive better. Survive? The 6 people looked at each other. That's right, survival. No matter how talented you are, if you can't survive and die prematurely, only death awaits you. Dead geniuses aren't geniuses, they're just idiots. Not to mention, in my eyes, you guys aren't geniuses at all. Every 10 years, I've seen so many so-called geniuses like you guys, but how many of them can really stand out? Chen Zhao said and added, follow me. After saying that, he led the group of 6 straight to a valley in the mountain range. The entire valley was filled with all sorts of restrictions and formations. However, in this world, they took the form of mysterious runes. These runes imprisoned the valley and even the trees and rocks in the valley, making the trees and rocks extremely sturdy and miraculous. However, Tsing Hui couldn't see the specific use of these runes. He could only rely on his powerful senses to determine the changes in their quality. In the valley, there were dozens of small courtyards that were very far apart. They were scattered all over the valley with a diameter of nearly 100 kilometers. Some old people lived in these courtyards, but there were also many young people. Judging from the exclamations of Anya, who was also selected, from time to time, it was not difficult to guess that these young people were the outstanding geniuses who had been selected to enter the ancestral land in the previous big competition held every 10 years. As soon as Elder Chen Zhao arrived, he immediately began to gather the other young people in the courtyard. Not long after, there were more than 40 young people gathered in front of Tsing Hui. Among these 40 young people, the weakest was at least gold rank, and more than half of them were at least platinum rank. This fully demonstrated the depth of the Yin family's heritage. Today is the day when the newcomers arrive. At the same time, it is also the day when the unqualified will be eliminated. If you want to stay in the ancestral land, you can only be the true pillar of the Yin clan in the future, the leader who can support the growth of the Yin clan. Many of you clearly do not have this qualification. As Elder Chen Zhao spoke, he began to call out the names. Not long after, 6 people were selected. The 6 people who were chosen had gloomy expressions on their faces. Shame and unwillingness could be seen on their faces. Your performance in the past 10 years has disappointed me. Now, you can pack your things and go back. The Yin family's precious resources won't be wasted on trash. Elder Chen Zhao's words were merciless. However, in the eyes of Anya and the others, this scene was rather unbelievable. Because among the 6 people who were eliminated, 4 of them were at the gold rank, and 2 of them were even at the platinum rank. If they were placed in the outside world, they would be able to dominate a region. But now, from the looks of it, they were kicked out like trash by Elder Chen Zhao. This naturally formed a strong impact on them. If a platinum rank who was less than 300 years old was like this, then what about them, the gold rank juniors? The ancestral land has a unique cultivation environment formed by the accumulation of all the Yin family's resources. In 10 years, as long as you put in enough effort and diligence, even if your talent is trash, you can still break through a small realm. If you can't break through, then you'll be kicked out like them in 10 years. Elder Chen Zhao announced the mechanism without hesitation. The rules of the ancestral land are like this. You must break through a small realm every 10 years when you're gold rank, and the time limit is extended to 30 years when you're platinum rank. Only then can you continue to stay in the ancestral land. If your performance doesn't satisfy us, then you don't have the qualifications to become a guardian of the ancestral land and enjoy the family's best resources. Just like them, the 6 cultivators who were kicked out immediately looked ashamed. The remaining 30 or so young people all looked nervous. Survival of the fittest. The weak don't have the qualifications to enjoy rich resources. This is the first lesson I'm teaching you. Take them away. Elder Chen Zhao waved his hand as he spoke, and the elders came forward to take the 6 people who were eliminated away. You've all cultivated the gold body, but the gold body is only the beginning of the gold rank. Chen Zhao's voice echoed in the field, but Xing Hui didn't pay much attention to it. Most of his attention was focused on sizing up the ancestral land. Unfortunately, even if he was one of the most powerful people in the world, and his battle strength wasn't any weaker than the demon god's incarnation, his experience and knowledge were too little. Even if he knew that the ancestral land hid a great secret, he couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. Looks like, if I want to get in touch with the core secrets of the ancestral land, I'll have to first obtain a high enough position. Fortunately, I've always been a genius in the past 100 years. Since I've been nurtured by the ancestral land's resources, I won't attract too much attention no matter how much of a genius I am. Xing Hui calmed down as he thought about it. After Chen Zhao gave a lecture, he quickly brought the 6 people, including the 20 or so seniors who were still in the gold rank, into the cultivation course. The first place they were brought to was a huge smithy. This smithy had a large furnace with a diameter of 10 meters. Through smelting gold, precious herbs, and ferocious beast corpses, a large amount of golden liquid was extracted. The first step was to smear the golden liquid all over their bodies. During the smearing process, the golden liquid seeped into their bodies. While it brought them excruciating pain, it also strengthened their bodies and tempered their cells. With his powerful senses, Xing Hui could clearly see how precious this resource was to a gold rank cultivator. After understanding the amplification effect of the golden liquid on a gold rank powerhouse, Xing Hui made sure that his body showed enough improvement every time he completed his cultivation. Under such circumstances, he rose from the beginner gold rank to the intermediate gold rank in just 2 years of cultivation, which was the minimum requirement for the 10 years of cultivation. This result surprised Elder Chen Zhao a little, and the guidance he gave him after that was obviously more biased. The results that Xing Hui deliberately showed did not disappoint Elder Chen Zhao. In less than 3 years after breaking through to the intermediate gold rank, he advanced again and stepped into the advanced gold rank. In just 5 years, he had broken through 2 small ranks. Not only did it make other cultivators of the same rank envious, but it also alarmed more elders. In the next 5 years, Xing Hui continued to work hard. Under the surprised gazes of several elders, he broke through again and rushed to the peak gold rank, completing the 3-level leap in just 10 years. It seemed that the platinum rank was just around the corner. Xing Hui, who had shown such talent, finally gained the attention of the elders of the ancestral land. Following that, Elder Wu Yan personally gave him one-on-one special training that lasted for 10 years. In these 10 years, Xing Hui could clearly feel that Elder Wu Yan was not only guiding him in his cultivation, but also finding ways to establish his worldview. Chapter 943. A Chaos Life Form. To worship another chaos life form in a chaos life form's chaos universe? Or could it be that, the Yin family lineage is actually a descendant of a chaos life form? When Xing Hui came to the Yin family, he had always felt that the Yin family was not simple. But he never expected that the Yin family, which he only believed to have some huge secrets, was actually that complicated. A chaos life form. Could it be, was this a chaos life form that had infiltrated another chaos life form's body in a bid to trigger a war between chaos life forms? But, a war between chaos life forms shouldn't be so trivial, right? With the size of chaos life forms, once they attacked, it should be an apocalyptic battle. I believe you can tell from the moment you came here that our Yin family isn't as simple as you make it out to be. Eclipse's turbid gaze landed on Xing Hui as it contained a terrifying glint. Do you remember the oath you swore when Smokeless brought you here? I remember. I will forever be the sharp sword of the family clan, slashing apart all enemies that obstruct our family clan's rise to prominence. Even the Eternal Temple's priest core is no exception. Sing Hui wore a solemn expression as his expression was filled with resolve. He knew that when he said those words, the elder named Eclipse had already used a chaos life form figurine that resembled a creation divine artifact to probe his heart. He was trying to determine the truth of his words. Unfortunately, on the one hand, Sing Hui was speaking the truth. He wasn't afraid of the Eternal Temple's priest core. On the other hand, as a chaos life form, how could a statue that only contained a portion of the chaos life forms might probe the thoughts of another chaos life form? Seeing that the statue didn't show any abnormalities, Eclipse's eyes were filled with a satisfied smile. Then, he slowly said, I believe you are now very curious as to who this mighty patriarch in front of you is, right? Sing Hui nodded heavily. At the same time, he looked at the statue in front of him and imagined the growth process of a chaos life form. He said, Elder, I sense an extremely familiar aura from this statue. In fact, this familiar aura makes a force in my body stir. Is this our true patriarch? You can actually sense the primogenitor's aura. When Eclipse heard Sing Hui's words, he immediately widened his eyes. Could it be? Could it be that the bloodline in your body is showing signs of atavism? Yes. Yes. That was definitely the case. Otherwise, I can't explain how you, who came from a branch family, could break through to such a level in such a short time. With that said, Eclipse sliced open his right hand and dripped a drop of blood essence to offer it to the statue in front of him. He said with excitement, Great Ancestor, if this person in front of me is really of your bloodline, please bless him. When Sing Hui heard this, his expression changed slightly. He seemed to have gone a little overboard. Just as he was trying to come up with a solution, the statue did not respond. The excitement in Eclipse's eyes gradually dimmed. The great primogenitor lost his response to us 3 million years ago. According to the legends passed down from the other branches, the great primogenitor was harmed by this evil god. Even his world was devoured. This chaos being was harmed by the burning blood lord. Even the universe was devoured. If that's the case, this chaos being is probably dead. Sing Hui's heart stirred. If the chaos being in front of him was really dead, he had a much greater chance of success. With this thought in mind, the virtual immortal Tao world's powers rapidly projected onto the statue. Instantly, the statue emitted a profound, obscure, vast, majestic, and boundless aura. It left Dean Eclipse widening his eyes. This is. Although it's very weak, and there are some slight differences, but this is definitely an aura that only the primogenitor can possess. The primogenitor has manifested his spirit. Hum. The statue's mysticism lasted for an instant. At the next moment, the mysticism transformed into a stream of light that shot into Sing Hui's body. Upon obtaining the stream of light, Sing Hui thought of the various characteristics of the Chaos Being's cultivation system. He immediately faked a tragic cry as though he was in extreme pain. And as he screamed, his platinum stage aura began to rise crazily. Platinum stage, platinum stage, platinum stage, platinum stage, platinum stage, platinum stage. His life form's evolution improved by leaps and bounds. He went from the platinum stage to the platinum stage to the platinum stage. This was also the highest level Sing Hui could reach without anyone noticing anything amiss with his present strength. If he wanted to reach the glorious sun or even the legendary stage, he was lacking in strength. On the other hand, it was inevitable that Dean Eclipse would notice something amiss. Heavens, the primogenitor's blessing. Bloodline awakening. This is the sign of the primogenitor's blessing of bloodline awakening. When Elder Eclipse saw the changes in Sing Hui's aura, he exclaimed in pleasant surprise. At the same time, the mystical aura that appeared on the statue also attracted the powerful senses of the dozen or so legendary powerhouses in this obscure place. Along with the dispersal of a huge aura, the figures of the dozen or so legendary powerhouses appeared in the hall where the statue was located at the same time. Eclipse, what's going on? Oh. This is the primogenitors. Just now, we sensed a vast and majestic aura that caused one's life essence to tremble. However, that aura was too obscure, and it vanished without a trace in a flash. We didn't have the time to investigate it carefully at all. What exactly happened? Legendary experts with terrifying auras appeared one after another. Every one of them was in existence in no way weaker than a mighty divine ability user. Although the number of these people was nothing compared to the scene Xing Hui had in the Eternal Temple, he had yet to recover to his peak. If he were to make enemies with more than 10 legendary experts, he would still be in danger. Thankfully, Eclipse seemed to sense the change in Xing Hui's breathing. He thought that he was frightened by the presence of so many legendary experts and immediately waved his hand. You old fogies, don't scare our little Ani. Ani? This little guy. Oh. His bloodline seems very young. He's already at the moonshine stage. What's going on, Eclipse? As the legendary experts conversed, they quickly converged their auras. As for Xing Hui, he also recovered some of his complexion. By the side, Eclipse immediately consoled him. Ani, don't be nervous. These are our and family's elders who guard the ancestral grounds. They usually cultivate in seclusion deep in the ancestral grounds. Unless we're facing a fatal danger, they won't easily walk out of the ancestral grounds. You don't have to worry either. You just received the primogenitor's blessing and awakened the primogenitor's bloodline. In the future, the family will definitely nurture you with all its might. The primogenitor's blessing? Bloodline awakening? Eclipse, are you saying that this little guy? An old man among the dozen or so people widened his eyes and looked at Qing Su in some disbelief. The others basically had the same reaction as him. Eclipse nodded. The anomaly that happened just now was an E receiving the primogenitor's blessing. As a result, he awakened his bloodline. Due to his bloodline awakening, an E went from the low platinum stage to the low moonshine stage. He crossed 8 minor realms and 2 major realms. Is it really a bloodline awakening? The elder immediately appeared beside Xing Hui and pulled him up. At the same time, a surge of energy surged into Xing Hui's body. Xing Hui's heart stirred as he released a wisp of his energy fluctuations as a chaos life form. To ensure his safety, he only allowed the elder to sense the energy fluctuations for a moment before quickly concealing them. But even so, the elder could not help but reveal a look of delight when he sensed the chaos life form aura in Xing Hui's body. It's indeed a bloodline awakening. Although it's extremely weak, he's the only descendant who has truly awakened his bloodline in the past 3 million years. Isn't it said that the great primogenitor has already perished? Even the chaos verse we live in has been devoured and refined by this detestable chaos life form. It forced our lineage to scatter across the mortal plane and hide ourselves deep in hopes of the day when we can recreate the primogenitor's glory. How can he still bless his descendants and awaken their bloodline? One of the elders was doubtful. However, his doubts were quickly refuted by another elder. The great primogenitor's power is far beyond our imagination. Although we haven't received a reply from the primogenitor in the past 3 million years, that doesn't mean he's truly dead. After all, 3 million years is nothing to an existence like the great primogenitor. It might be equivalent to a period of seclusion for him to recuperate. As for your claim that the primogenitor's universe has been devoured by the chaos life form, that might not be the case. Our subsidiary world still exists to this day, so doesn't that prove that the chaos life form has only absorbed the primogenitor's world into his body and not fully assimilated it? Once the primogenitor awakens, he'll naturally be able to regain control of that world and charge out of the chaos life form's chaos verse. That's right. The chaos life form has indeed devoured the primogenitor's world, but he had already left his own chaos verse 1,000,000 years ago. It said that he had invaded other chaos verses, and a mere 2 million years isn't enough for the primogenitor's world to be completely melted. Perhaps the primogenitor took advantage of that time to be reborn from the ashes and return from death. That's most likely the case. The youth before us must be the first seed chosen by the primogenitor upon his return. At the same time, the primogenitor is giving us a signal before he awakens, and might even contact us through him one day in the future. Exactly. The legends who had been waiting for the primogenitor's reply for a long time were all agitated, placing all their gazes and hopes on Xinghui. After all, there was no mistaking the vast presence they had sensed and the various reactions of the primogenitor statue. A smile appeared on Qing Su's face as he watched the legendary elders talk to themselves excitedly. It was not a waste to infiltrate the family for so long. Now, it was finally time for him to reap the rewards, and from the current situation, the descendants of a fallen chaos life form, the final reward might be more bountiful than he imagined. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.